Ready, aim, release! Anyone see my mammoth? Hello! Hello.
What up, everybody?
I always make this terrible joke, the ceiling. Anyway, it's another week. It's now coming up to the end of August. This is basically the last full week in August. For us in the UK, it's a bank holiday weekend next weekend, which we will be doing the session still. We'll still be here on Tourney Ground, but it basically is the last week in August. It's less than a month away, or it is basically now exactly 1 month away in terms of date from London GT.
Yeah.
It's exactly the 23rd, isn't it? 23rd is the day. No, 23rd is my last day of work. Derp. Yeah, no, that's what I'm thinking of. But yeah, Deoxys says good day. Good evening, Deoxys, from coming in from Australia live. I'm impressed, man. I'm impressed. So yeah, we'll obviously talk about the Grand Tournament again, in case you haven't heard enough from that about us. We will talk about it again. There's some little things we need to make sure that everybody here knows. We've had a request to talk about it because people can't get enough of this. So we will talk about that, obviously. But this weekend there's been loads of tournaments, loads of events going on, global wide actually. It's not just one or two events. There's been loads of events across the world happening, so we're going to catch up with those. And obviously there's been announcements and things. Obviously we start with the news. But before we do any of that, Carlo, you are here. You are looking a little bit tired. It's been a long day at work. Been a long weekend.
I'm actually pretty tired.
Go on then. How have you been? How have you been keeping this last week? And what have you been up to?
Well, I'm sure loads of people will know that I went to a tournament yesterday. That's probably why I'm a bit tired. 7 a.m. to drive to a tournament. I don't do mornings. In case anybody doesn't know, I don't do mornings. That's like 7 a.m. is like 4 hours earlier than I normally get up. So, it was a long day, but a really good event. Other than that, just the usual stuff of never leaving this room because COVID still supposedly exists. Still gonna be wary. Still gonna be kind of watching what we do. But tournaments are the thing that I get out for, and it's great to get out and see people again.
I heard let it slip the other day that you accidentally got lured into going for a walk.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't say accidental. I more got shoved out the house by my wife because supposedly leaving the house once a week is a requirement these days.
Cool. So, we've got quite a few things to cover today. Lots of little things. Nothing huge, but there will be some big things within what we talk about. So we'll see where that all goes. And the first thing, obviously, we start with the news, as we always do. And we mentioned it at the end of Tourney Ground last week, because it was literally hot off the press. It literally just started. Also, hi to Vlad, Luke. Nice to meet you. Nice to see you on here live, Luke. Nice to meet you. Ben and Waiting for Virtue. Played against Luke, by the way. Luke is LM A Song Ice and Fire on stats, and you can see him there, currently in 6th position. He is someone who constantly talks about repping top 8 on the front page as a neutral player, so shout out to Luke. But does Carlo sparkle like a Twilight vampire in the sunlight? No one has ever lived to tell that story, so I don't know, Marwin. Sorry. I only ever see him under the cover of Twilight, like the time of day. Everything sparkles then, right? We live in the UK.
Plus, while we sit and watch Twilight together, they're the two times.
And he does sparkle a lot during. All right. So the CMON news. Now, obviously, last week we talked about it's the CMON 20th anniversary, which is
big birthday.
Kind of scary. Yeah, it is. It is big birthday. It's kind of scary to think that CMON have been around that long.
I mean, that's like CMON. I mean, CMON was a website, right? Like CMON was cool mini or not. It was like
hang on.
Instagram for miniatures to begin with.
So.
Like like is crazy. So the first interaction I ever had with Simon actually was when it was a website called Cool Mini or Not. It must have been like probably about 20 years ago or whatever, like when it
I
was relatively new.
I'm
And
actually convinced. Yeah, I'm semi-convinced that the forums have never actually moved past what they were in 2001. Like I've just kind of like gone back to
quite,
it and thought
quite
about it and been
possibly,
like, this is the same PHP style like forum base that people used to use back then. It really hasn't changed. Yeah,
if people
wow.
don't know, Simon, Cool Mini or Not, as a website, was a place that you put painted miniatures and people would rate them out of 10, right?
Mhm.
It was the harshest motherfucking website of critics you could ever, ever go on. I'm not even joking. World class Golden Demon winners would put their miniatures up and they would get like a 6 out of 10. It was phenomenal. The expectation level of people on on Cool Mini or Not when they rated people's miniatures. It was crazy. It was. I used to go on there and look at it, and I'd just be like, mind blown, 10 out of 10. Like, and I'd look at its score, and it was like 4.7, and I was like, what?
I just want to go and rate some like in traditional like back to its roots Simon level um like just Simon level interaction going back all the way to when Simon was exactly that website. So here's some. I think this is one of the images from Big Child Creative. This is a solid 6, do you reckon, or is this more like a 5?
Yeah, yeah, that probably 5-6 range.
Yeah,
Yeah,
five, five,
like,
six.
and somebody would be like, no scenic base, maximum 7. Haven't
Yep.
even, no conversions, maximum 6. And I can see one mistake, so you're actually getting a 5. And I'd be like, what?
just just casual like get a professional in. It's like
Yeah,
mediocre.
yeah,
um,
average.
yeah. So yeah, you go.
I mean,
That
they're
was
nice.
Simon. They
It
are.
is. It's
They're
interesting to
actually
think though, like
nice.
actually, like the amount that it feels like it shouldn't have, but it really has. Painting itself of miniatures has moved forward so much in like the past 20 years. If you actually go back and look at like professional level painting, Golden Demon winners, stuff that you saw in White Dwarf magazines from like 20 years ago versus what is now almost a standard of tabletop painting, like they're actually not a million miles away from each other.
No.
And today's professional painters, Golden Demon winners, things that are like actually they're complete works of art. They use techniques, colors, blending that like people had never ever tried back then. It's crazy.
So I'll show you this because I actually happen to know this model. I've seen it before quite a lot. This is the 2005 winner of Golden Demon. And don't get me wrong, like this is a really nice piece. Like it's a really lovely model. Everything about it is nice. Like that level of quality just
Yeah.
would not make it. They
No.
just wouldn't make it.
Wouldn't
Um,
even make it into the contest these days.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
which is crazy to think that.
And but it's not just the top professional level painters that have moved on. Like I would obviously be pretty amazed if you put that down on the table opposite me. But like I feel like some painters at your local club are starting to reach that level without ever, obviously they never think of themselves as approaching professional stuff or, wanting to, you know, enter these into actual like single miniature professional painting competitions, but they are approaching what would have been that level 20 years ago.
Now that last piece was from a guy called Iago Pinada, very good painter. This piece was the thing that won the top vehicle back in 2005 by Kirill Kanaev. Like the vehicle, I will admit, like this is insane. The level
Yeah.
of detail here, like in most of this,
The freehand there is
this is the thing. Most of that's freehand. Like, and
yeah.
you're just like, what? And I know people are here aren't necessarily interested in 40k and things like that, but like I've seen people do works of art like this for like A Song of Ice and Fire. It's not as detailed. It's a little bit more shaky. We're talking about like you see it more recently, especially like the skirts of Hedge Knights, and it's
Yeah.
like this level of detail, and you're like, what? Like, you know, the hobby really has
Yeah.
come on a long way.
Yeah.
So yeah. Anyway, um, that is the Simon thing happening on Friday and Saturday this week. And Joe, paint technologies increased access to tutorials and deep pigments. Yeah, of course, even talked about last week, Duncan Rhodes and the likes of that, making painting like Duncan is not a professional. We talked about this a lot after last session, right? Duncan's not a professional painter, and yet Duncan opened up painting at a actually kind of quite professional level to everybody at an amateur level. And it's not just Duncan Rhodes. Do check out all the other, fantastic painters out there. I know Sam Lenz paints up some Song of Ice and Fire stuff. Vince Vitrullo, a huge painter for Warhammer, runs Warhammer Weekly. Superb guys like that. Really interesting techniques. Even the likes of Squidmar Miniatures, Miniac, and people like that. And Goober Town Hobbies, which I know is massively popular in the US actually. But yeah, so it is cool to think that it's come on a long way, and to think that Simon as well have actually kept that up in their games. And we talked about it last week again, Carlo, like the important of the hobby aspect of the game.
Mm-hmm.
Like it is actually really important. It's not something that I myself am very good at or want to spend time doing, but I do actually enjoy it. Whereas Carlo, for you, it's become actually a bigger part of the game. Actually, I'd say over the last year. Do you think?
Yeah. I mean, I think lockdown, playing on TTS, and like being away from the game made me realize how much of the complete hobby that I enjoy and how much I want to push myself forward in every aspect of the hobby, not just, like once you took away all these aspects of playing in person and I was just left with the game on TTS, which is what I thought was what I always cared about the most. I realized that there was a lot lacking for me, and that what I really enjoyed was the complete full aspect of the hobby. Really, really enjoy seeing painted armies on the table played against each other.
Deoxys there is just he's pointing out I do want to go and win Golden Demon, so I have actually prepared a model specifically for this. This is my entry for Golden Demon this year. I call it Free Folk Raider in black. There you go. The detail on that miniature there.
The depth and the subtlety to the various black tones of that undercoat is phenomenal.
Do you have any idea how hard it was to wash that miniature with black ink? Anyway, believe it or not, this is actually crazy. I painted up that unit of raiders, just like inked them to then do them like as a base coat to then work up from it in like browns and different browns and blacks. This was before contrast paints were released, and contrast paints were released. And I was like, I have made a terrible decision in my life. So yeah. Anyway, so Song of Ice and Fire Stats going to have a hot or not painting section confirmed. I did offer it. Vlad, if he's listening, has sent me plenty of pictures which we've had on the show before of like hot or nots, and Vlad's only been painting for a year, and he's sent in some quite nice stuff. So if anyone does want to paint, send in some stuff that they think looks good, we will show it up here because why not? I can't guarantee it'll be every week. I can't guarantee it'll be everything that you send, but me and Carlo like looking at nice things.
And then you can fill the chat with the most savage ratings of the miniature you want, and we can just recreate early Simon. We'll have early cool mini or not. And
if anyone says that we're being negative, we can just be like, mate, we're just being Simon. Anyway, the big one, I've left it on that page for ages. The big one is on Saturday. So we see here that at 10 a.m. Pacific time, or 1 p.m. Eastern in America, it's the Rally the Troops, they've called it, Saturday stream, which is A Song of Ice and Fire, the miniatures game developer update. I don't know why we're going to sit on stream and watch the developers being updated, but I'm sure that's fine. User jokes there, terrible. I mean, great. I mean, I'm happy. I think it's really interesting. So we've often talked about A Song of Ice and Fire as being, it feels like a third level game, or like a back burner game for Simon. It's not their main thing. Like, and I think it would be very disrespectful to say it isn't. I think Zombicide's got to be their flagship product. I think
Yeah.
everyone knows that. If Simon were to say it's not and that Song of Ice and Fire is, I think we'd all be like, yeah, but it's not though, is it? Zombicide is their flagship product, but what I have been very glad about, and I perhaps we don't give enough credit for, they always do an independent A Song of Ice and Fire stream.
Yeah.
Like, there is always something A Song of Ice and Fire related and usually dedicated to, be it a half an hour FAQ or question and answer or an actual update session. So I do respect that from Simon, that at every one of these virtual events over the last year and a half, of course.
Can we look back at
have
the
one.
last slide just quickly so I
Yeah.
can just scan through?
Yep. It's
Yeah,
really
see,
interesting
because
one
I
about.
mean, because obviously I was going to say like the other one that comes to mind for me is the big Ankh Blood Rage. I was trying to remember if Rising Sun was in it. Obviously, a huge. I'm not actually 100% sure how they're linked, but they're a linked
Aren't they in the
gameplay experience.
same
They're
universe or something? Or set?
yes,
Yeah.
yes, and they possibly have similar mechanics in their games, but I don't. They're not. They're all standalone games. Anyway, I'm not actually that knowledgeable on how they link together. Hobbit on Hold, yes, Zombicide is massive in terms of the sheer amount of money that it has generated and the amount of expansions and re-releases that Simon have done. They pretty much put out a Zombicide. At least they were at their peak, putting out a new Zombicide like every 2 years and generating, you know, I'm gonna say something like 100 million quid, maybe
Yeah, so I mean, to put it in
each time.
perspective, I played Zombicide um before, I want to say before I started like coming back to the club with Carlo. So we're talking about I played Zombicide 6 years ago, I think 6 or 7 years ago, when I used to game on Fridays and Saturdays. And Zombicide has been going since then, and the people I were gaming with were like war gamers slash board gamers. They were not fantasy gamers at all,
Hmm.
and they found Zombicide through like various different avenues. Um, I want to say I was even playing Zombicide before then as well. Like the original Zombicide could have been 2012.
Yeah,
Like it feels like
Zombicide
it's that
is the
far.
true miniature board game crossover of like they managed to sell huge amounts of miniatures and very expensive games to the board game community, right?
Definitely.
Like,
Yeah,
and it's so entirely the board game community. Uh,
nailed that. Literally nailed that spot
Ben
on.
saying,
Zombicide 1, the original Zombicide came out in 2012. Just
yeah,
checked it there.
Ben saying that Ankh Blood Rage Rising Sun, he calls it a thematic trilogy, which, yeah, I mean, I don't know exactly how similar the games are, whether or not they're just the same, but
It's
they are
the
Egypt, Norse, and Japan, right?
Yeah,
In terms of like
the mythology stuff. It's what oh, I forgot the name of them now. The guys from Mythic Battles are doing. With the
right, yeah.
Mythic Battle Pantheon, Mythic Battle Ragnarok, Mythic Battles, the next one. I can't remember what the next one's going to be called. But it's the same idea. I think
Ben
it's
seems quite
a different
knowledgeable.
game. Yeah.
I know that Ben has and is been involved in the board game industry, or the game industry. So
Wow.
I'm sure he knows way more about us. Maybe we'll just let Ben explain to everybody in the chat about what's going on.
Through text. Cool. Yeah. No. Huge. I've never played any of them except Zombicide, so I can't comment on Ankh Blood Rage or Rising Sun. But what's interesting for me, can we just respect this one as well? It's a 20-year anniversary of Simon, and they're bringing back Eric Lang for a chat. Eric Lang, who has left Simon at this point, it's worth remembering.
Hmm.
But he's coming back to chat about the mythology and the design of it, like celebrating Simon's 20th anniversary. So I think that's really great as well.
Yeah.
So yeah. Anyway, yes, it's 1 p.m. ET, 10 a.m. PT, which is going to be Eastern time +5. I think +5 or 6. I can never remember at the moment. So we're talking about 6 p.m. UK time, I think, is when the stream is going to be. So yeah. Masters of the Universe is looking like their next big push.
Yeah. Yeah,
I think it
that
probably will be.
very clear that they've been putting a huge amount of their resources into Masters of the Universe. I'm totally not interested. I play board games all the time, but I'm not actually into any of Simon's board games.
Can't say I am
I
massively.
no. Zombicide I played and I'm not into,
It's okay.
and
It's just
the
okay.
others just they don't float my boat. But song hits it just right.
I
So
have to
let's hope.
I have to freely admit this one as well. Like, I grew up with the ability to watch Masters of the Universe. I'm slightly younger, so I was watching predominantly like reruns and stuff because it was around in the 80s. Um, I didn't. I've never
I don't like
really cared.
He-Man.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I've never
it
liked
might it
it.
might be. I know it might really rub some people up in the chat, but
Never
no,
liked
I
He-Man that
don't like
much.
He-Man. I don't like He-Man. It's
Never,
weird.
never taken my interest. Um, so yeah, there's the news from Simon. So that's this Saturday coming up. You can bet we'll talk about it next Monday anyway. What do we think, Carlo? We've obviously talked about it a little bit. What do you think they're going to go through? Do you think we're going to see something like Golden Company announcement because
Yeah,
we didn't announce them? What else are we
absolutely.
thinking? Maybe
Golden Company seems quite big, but
yeah.
it is only like 3 units, right? So it's a bit. It's either big or it's not. It is not. Some people have said Martels. I think no, but it's not impossible.
I am of the
But
opinion that they might announce the new faction and looks and
yeah,
like show us no units or anything, but be
yeah,
like, here's a
we're talking about like on the way out, they
yes
like have this almost accidental like giveaway
image.
that oh look there's a sun spear. Do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
honestly, it'll be something like that. Just so that, and they'll do it on the way out so that they don't have to answer a million follow-up questions that people will have, right? Because
yeah.
people will then be like, units when they coming out, when they doing this, like they won't tell you a date, they won't be saying Q4, they won't be saying anything, they'll just say, oh look, Martels, right? Which honestly is all we could and should expect from them, considering that nobody's seen. We get leaks of like what's coming out like 6 months ahead, 9 months ahead, based on various distributor lists and stuff like that. And Martels are nowhere near them, right? Nobody's seen a product code for Martels yet. Nobody knows if that even realistically is the next faction. Everybody just assumes that. So even them saying or putting a picture of Martels up would be quite a big reveal.
So on that note, and talk about product reveal, I want to stop by and have a little look at our friends over at Asmodee UK. Asmodee UK have updated their website last week. Karstark Spearmen are on there. Great. There's a couple of other things that we already knew. There's nothing announced new that's not been what wasn't in the stream or whatever. But why am I talking about this? Mickey, why are you talking about this? This is super freaking random. That's pointless and wasting everyone's time.
Something to do with
Except
product codes, I think, is
it's
where we're going.
not product codes at all. But do you remember there was
No.
Karstark Loyalists announced?
No.
Karstark Loyalists were actually in our show when we looked at the Asmodee UK putting up loads
But
of stuff.
Spearmen weren't?
Spearmen weren't. Now, we had assumed
Right.
when they showed Spearmen that they were Loyalists and they changed the name. They aren't.
But they're 113 and 114.
They are literally different boxes. Don't know the
Interesting.
product codes for either of them, but they are literally labelled as different boxes on the Simon or Asmodee UK website. So there
Also,
are
one of them,
two.
one of them's called one of them. I mean, God,
They,
when you flick between them,
I
the
know,
differences in those titles are horrible.
I know.
Song of Ice and Fire, tabletop miniatures game, Karstark Loyalists versus a
No
Song of Ice and
ampersand
Fire miniatures game, miniatures spelt incorrectly,
and no
House
ampersand.
Karstark Spearman.
But they are. I mean, the House of Karstark Spearmen we know about. But yeah, so it is looking like we are going to see two Karstark units, which is interesting.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Happy. Anyway, thought I'd mention that. Nearly forgot about that one. We talk about reveals and stuff. Yeah, there's plenty of things wrong with you. Plenty of things wrong. 150 million wrong. But anyway, so yeah, there's all the news there. Of course, I'll mention it again in case people have been unaware. I'll just quickly go back to it. The rules forum is up and running. You can come on here and you can see Michael Chanel answering questions. His last time he was on there was on the 21st, which was Saturday. So he's answering questions on a Saturday. Man's insane. Although technically it's like Friday evening where he is, like Saturday morning in the UK. But yeah, he is answering these questions still, and he'll no doubt come to answering some of the more recent ones in the next coming days. So do check out the forum. Do check out all the updates there. There will be updates to rules. Carlos still is going to wait until, I imagine, the 22nd of September, when he's actually going to read through all of these to establish his own set of ruling for the Grand Tour.
Yeah. I haven't really read. I haven't read them still, despite I really should have before the tournament at the weekend. But oh well.
Right. So on that note, I'll mention it now so that our unnamed viewer doesn't get angry with us, and then I'll also mention it at the end. The waiting list for the Grand Tournament is open. All of the tickets for the event have been sold. There is a waiting list now. If you want to join what is going to be hopefully one of the largest, the second largest event for Song in the Western world that we know of. I say that because we have no idea what happens inside China. There could be some massive events. If anyone knows, please let us know. But what is going to be the second largest after Master of Westeros 1. Get involved if you want to be. If you're based in the UK, if you're not based in the UK and you can travel across, huge shout out to the various people who we've got planning to come across. People like the guys from Rotterdam White Scars, some of the guys from Poland, Blood Raven, and they guys know who they are. Even some of the Germans hoping to get across as well. So huge shout out to all those guys coming across, especially given COVID. And yeah, join the waiting list now. In order to join the waiting list, you do need to join the Discord, the Grand Tourney or Song of Ice and Fire LGT Discord channel, and there is a request there to join the waiting list. There are tickets that people are looking to sell.
Yeah.
I think,
just to be very clear, it's called a waiting list, but there are currently people waiting to move their tickets on, right? Like, so if you want to, then come and grab a ticket. There's no gain for us or the LGT or anything at this point. All the tickets are sold. There are no refunds, all that kind of stuff. All the price support is all locked in, but we would want 64 people to turn up on the day. We want it to be as big and as best competition as possible. So that means we really want to help players move their ticket on if they're no longer able to be there. And there are some people currently trying to move their ticket on. So we really, really hope that these last few tickets come and get taken up. It's not, we don't gain anything from it except having the event be as good as it possibly can be. So get onto the Discord and just send a message over to Leak Teddy, and he'll hook you up really quickly.
Plus, if we had, like they said on the stream on Saturday, if we do have an odd number, Carlo, Daryl, or Leak Teddy, Chris have said that they might have to step in just to play a game with somebody for that round, so that the person goes. It doesn't mean that the result of the game will necessarily go towards the event, but it gives a player a game to at least have in that time frame. And let's face it, no one here wants Carlo to play games at the Grand Tournament. Guy's an idiot. He doesn't deserve to play games. That's what the ELO event on Friday's for.
Absolutely. If you force me to play games during the main event, you're getting awful.
I really just want you to bring just a massive 3D printed 18-foot offal and just put him on the table and be like, a win. I don't know why I said 18 foot. That's absolutely huge. It's bigger than the venue. Anyway, so
I'm sure it'll fit in Daryl's car.
I'm sure it will. On the roof, mate. Roof pass. It's fine. So yeah, join the waiting list if you want to. If you are looking and coming down, if you're based in the UK, there's, in my opinion, from somebody who's not necessarily involved in the arranging of anything or the organising of it, and as a player, from my perspective, is that there is no good reason I would have for missing this if I want to attend a Song of Ice and Fire outside of like I have real life stuff that is literally happening that weekend instead. Like if it's just because I can't really be bothered or a bit too expensive, like other events will actually end up being more expensive in the long run for a lot of individuals. So definitely look into it. Chris Baker saying Karstark's loyal to House Bolton, he assumes. Probably. Maybe. We'll never know. We'll find out in the next exciting episode of Simon Reveal Streams! Or we won't. So, I think that's all the news and all the things we needed to say. Leet Teddy will no doubt shout at us in chat to redo this whole segment again at the end so he can remind people to join the waiting list. Any other news, Carlo, that you had?
I don't think so. No, not on the news end of things.
Cool. Awesome. We'll move on to tournaments then. Look at that. Seamless. It wasn't seamless. So, oh, I forgot the big question, Carlo. And this is, as we know, guys, we all like bombarding Carlo with a question here that he has no prior knowledge of, and I haven't done it in a while. So, Carlo, the website. Last week we got to show people ELO events are actually alive on the website and people can use them. What's the new interesting thing that you're working on for the site at the moment, or the next feature you have planned?
Oh right, okay. I guess the next thing that I will add is probably the commander profiles back in.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, there's a small bug which now it affects me. I'm annoyed by it, but
yes.
I already knew existed, which is on your own profile, the results get discarded if it's a mirror match between you and your opponent's faction. And now that I've played a mirror match, I really want it to appear on my profile. It's no change to your ELO, it's no change to anything else. It's just when you go down a bit to the bars that show your win-loss ratios. Accidentally mirror matches are being removed from that because it uses the same bit of code that the factions do. The factions obviously need to remove their mirror matches to calculate their win ratios properly. So yeah. Bob, see, that's a problem. Bob wants to be able to email the participants. I have thought about it a little bit. There is an issue, which is that in the EU, that's illegal. Yeah. I'm not allowed to share people's data, and technically it's an EU hosted site, so we're under EU data protection really realistically. Plus it's just a whole kettle of fish that I don't want to get into. Like, it's not a professional website. It doesn't, so I don't want to deal with the fallout of me sharing emails with you, because that's a whole thing. Though I do understand that it really would be useful to be able to email the participants of a tournament.
There are 100% ways around it, Bob, but like the amount of work that you'd have to go in for, like, even just things like disclaimers. Like, we'd have to have a disclaimer on the website, for example. So it's little things like that, which is something that we could do and is like fully possible within Carlo's right, but is so a huge extra undergoing when it should be a tiny thing. So you've got to go and check up. We have to go and check up and reread General Data Protection Regulation 2018, which is a nightmare. Thankfully, I've read it multiple times. Not fun.
I have not. So I'm just like, I don't want to go anywhere near it.
I have to teach it, so I have to read it, which is a nightmare, and it is shit. It's horrible. Anyway, yes, mirrors. Right, fine. Fixing mirrors, good.
Fixing mirrors and putting up commander profiles so that we can see how commanders do against certain faction matchups and stuff like that. Yep. That's the two things that I'm currently interested in. And as we know, the site just kind of gets things done that I'm interested in.
Sounds good.
I do believe, it's not really news. I know Our Deep Math is currently working on some stuff. He's shown some like tasters of some deep analysis. And I believe he's working towards like a big He called it a blog post. I don't know where this blog will end up. Presumably, I mean, I'm sure it'll be shared everywhere once he's done it. I am interested to find out what kind of stuff he's looking at, what he finds. I have always wanted other people to talk about A Song of Ice and Fire stats. You know, like I'm actually not the best communicator of what's on there. I'm very interested in the way it works, the mathematics behind it, the creation of the algorithms. But the analysis, you know, is just something that I just talk to people about, and I'll be super interested. And I'm sure I'll go there and tear apart his whole analysis and tell him that it's crap once we get to it. But I'm super waiting forward to seeing what Ardeep has come up with in terms of like looking at like specific combination win rates, specifically where certain things get their ELO from.
Yeah. I was just about trying to find it there. I actually can't find it off the top of my head where it was. He shared it, or at least can't go back. Oh no, I'm just an idiot. I just completely looked over it. It does look interesting. It does look quite interesting. I'll zoom in for it for people watching. And he was what was interesting here was that he was looking at things like win rates and things like that, which I remember me and Carlo, specifically Carlo, actually spoke up about this. Is that kudos for the work, but this is on the website already. So yeah.
He is looking more specifically at like, you know, like, so he's trying to, this is just the top level stuff. I'm sure he's looking at like certain win rates of like this unit in this thing. He can, you know, filter it by all sorts of stuff. It is interesting also to just stick it all on one page. There is actually a page which general people can't see, where all this information is on one page, and I find it interesting. But the problem is that the calculation to load the page is very long, which is why currently, for those who don't know, at the bottom of every profile, you can click the button to find out what the win rates of a various faction is by certain activation counts.
Yep, so
Problem is that will take some time to load up all that information and run those calculations.
You got to appreciate that Carlo puts a comment on boxes when he's like, maybe I haven't finished this bit. Maybe it's not very good. Click it at your own risk.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, literally, sometimes it's like ELO. When you click ELO, it says, by the way, ELO is still sort of in testing. Are you sure you want to do this, guys? But yeah, here you go. So you can see the win rates of the faction by its various activation counts. People also ask sometimes, can we just see what the win rates are? You might not know. If you just mouse over those bars, it will tell you what the absolute numbers are. That's something I think quite a few people don't realize. That's a little bit harder on phone. So I understand that maybe a lot of people don't know that part.
Can we just respect this? 10 activation Targaryen list with a 100% win rate. 10 action targs. Now you know
pseudo.
Where it's at.
I assume if you click pseudo, that's going to go away. I assume.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Nobody's run a true 10 activation targ list. That would be a lot. Yeah, exactly. That would be a lot of freedmen. Anyway, so you know, already that can take quite a bit of time. This other page, which includes all this information all on one page at the same time. When you load this page, Chrome actually says, by the way, this is taking so long, I think this website's broken. Are you sure you want to wait for this web page to finish doing what it's doing? We think your computer's being scammed here by how much time and resources this page is taking to load. So if you remember back in the dark days, there was like some pages just used to take forever to load. And I've tried to avoid that kind of stuff when rebuilding the site. I've tried to be very careful about what is and isn't included in terms of what people are interested in. But that does leave huge scope for people to like come to the data and start to really dig into it and start to analyze it in a different way and analyze it much deeper. So like I say, I'm super looking forward to when he puts that blog post out.
I mean, Carlo, if you go back, you might have seen this as a more full graph. but Carlo has well and truly broken this one now into
yeah.
obscurity.
I changed something about the graph and then it squashed, and I was like, yeah, well.
It does not match up, but it is interesting still. But yeah, this is where we get all of our data for 2 versus 3, 1 versus whatever 2. And this is where we look at a lot of the information, including this graph here, which is the combined stuff. Carlo is aware that this needs to be worked on. Carlo, I berate him about this and saying, can we actually show this get people using this? Because this is a really interesting site and a really interesting page for a lot of people to get information from. Alas, it's just simply not ready for public consumption. Most of it doesn't work properly, and as he says, it will probably crash the website if everyone accidentally goes on it at the same time. So yeah. That's cool. It'll be amazing when that's all sorted, Carlo. No, he's crap. Right. Anyway, back on to actually where we were supposed to go. Not Targaryens, but tournaments. Begins with a T anyway.
Yep.
So, we had some events run over the weekend. We had, off the top of my head, the big ones. We had the event you were at, Imps Gaming in Lincoln. We had Sunday Slaughter's event with the restricted lists in Gamers Haven, Ohio. We had an event run in the Netherlands. Netherlands event. And we had a Polish event as well, is that right?
No, I think the last one is the Lockdown TTS 2 in Australia finished. Yeah, so it wasn't run on that day, but it finished over the last weekend in the last week since... interestingly, Mickey, you could just go on the Hall of Champions, and we would see all those finished events.
There we go.
This is where I like to kind of watch up what's been going on. But
so yeah, I remember talking about the Polish event last week. That was it. So we see 4 events run that are finished. We see Night's Watch. Carlo sullying himself with Night's Watch. Oh, we've seen K1 with Lannisters. Cool. In a restricted event.
Heavy ban.
Night's Watch.
Yep.
75 tournament % win rate.
Yeah.
No, that's not 75% win rate. That's 75% tournament win rate. They win tournaments 75% of the time.
Yep. So the first one, interestingly, oh no, sorry, not the second, the first one. The first one is in the last one, which is TTS Lockdown, is actually a Highlander event, which I know people have maybe theorized would actually, be a way to keep, Night's Watch a bit in check. I mean, it's interesting that it's won by a Jay or Alisa combination. People, thinking that build a crossbowman and the watch captain, that you can only bring one of them. And that you can only bring 1 unit of conscripts are all ways to, reduce the power level, but like they're still just a hyper efficient army. Like they have great units right across the 7-point band. They have amazing cards, just like such an amazing tactics deck. I can tell you now from having played it for basically the first time, it is phenomenally easy to play and phenomenally powerful. So I'm really not surprised that they're still just winning Highlander events. I think Highlander is a very interesting format. Interestingly, one of my lists was actually, it effectively met Highlander. My awful list is a Highlander list.
Yep.
And I wasn't using it as some kind of limitation, like it's not meta. It's not the same list that everybody expects to see. And people were surprised to see it when I told them that I was playing Night's Watch. They're like, why are you playing that then? But I think that Highlander, while being a very, very interesting format, isn't an answer to how to make the game more balanced right now. I do think it's still very interesting. Waiting for Virtue, Highlander, there can only be one, i.e. one of everything. You can't have multiples of anything. So you can't have 2 of the same unit. You can't have 2 of the same attachment. You can't have multiples of anything in the game. So that triple conscripts, double bowman, double watch captain, all totally illegal. You're only allowed one conscript, one watch captain, one bowman in the whole list. Obviously, named characters already fall into all of that just because of the way song works. But you will see in hyper competitive lists, by large majority, certain units get spammed, and also certain non-character attachments get spammed.
Yeah. So as a quick example, just for take the list we see on the left-hand side by Carlo. No, nothing in there is duplicated. It's all same, all different. Sorry. And then on the right-hand side list by myself, most of it's different. But of course, he runs the double conscript, meaning that would be an illegal list for a Highlander event.
Yeah.
But yeah, no. We'll come back on and talk to your event specifically in a little bit. But it is interesting that we see Night's Watch continue to just dominate. And that's actually going to be a kind of story from a tournament scene, which we're going to reflect when we look at the power rankings in a minute. There's been a lot of talk with the power rankings and a lot of the changes that
they have changed.
And we'll talk about that as well. David obviously saying glad someone else at Highlander is. Yeah, definitely. When not just for your sake, David, but wait for virtue your sake as well, and anybody else watching. If there's any time that we say something and you do not understand what we are saying, just tell us, because we will explain it. Like, we are here to help people learn, and if that's because we used a piece of technical language that people just don't use elsewhere, just yell at us violently and we will be like, sure, not a problem.
I didn't particularly know what a Highlander event was until the first song Highlander tournament turned up on stats, and luckily for me it said Highlander, and then it explained what the rules were in the information, and I was like, cool. And presumably it's been, I'm going to assume that it's come from other games as well.
Magic, I believe, has
Magic
runs Highlander events.
It's put on and spread very quickly.
Yeah.
Like the name, people seem very aware of the name and what it means in general in the gaming community. But it was new to me.
I think specifically is where I'd heard it in Magic before. So as soon as I said it, was like, oh yeah, right, cool. But yeah, cool. So the Rotterdam one. Now I do have a question, and if any of the guys are here, I'd love to know the answer. Saw a picture of the Rotterdam, or pictures of the Rotterdam event, and it looks like they had a great time. They had some really nice 3D painted terrain. Did you see?
I saw some pictures. But...
Yeah, some really nice 3D printed terrain, or 3D painted terrain, I should say, from the starter set. I think the Hand of the King start or whatever. And yeah, so it's really good to see people going back to the table, playing events back at the table, and the miniatures, being there. Yeah, just happy days, really. So why don't I beat this up here? I'm sure Tyson, the guys won't mind. There we go. Great to see.
Lovely.
What I will say though is one thing that me and you, Carlo, did laugh about. One of the images showed a guy with a shiny Rose Knight card with his brackets. Yeah. And now we are very much under the impression that the cards were not used as the 1.6 variants. They were just used as placeholders. We know people like to refer to stats or like the units so they know what's there, and even if it's just like, we know the stats aren't right, but this is what the unit's supposed to be, which is fair enough choice. But yet again, we're here. We are approaching the end of the second month of the third quarter, and we are asking ourselves, faction packs ?
Faction packs when? Yeah. Just you says he was in the chat, and that was him. Do you like your shiny cards? Yep. Or please tell me you played with a mix of 1.6 in 2021. That's the only thing I'm not okay with. If the tournament was played in 1.6, that's great. If the tournament was played in 2021, that's better. If it was played with some of one and some of the other,
it was 2021.6. Oh dear God. Yeah. No, we'd love to know. Obviously, when we see the images and things like that, it brings it's almost like a dagger to the heart, because it's like, oh, I love to see people having fun. I love to see events. I love to see results, but also like, are people aware? Things like that. It's not that I want everyone to be playing off the same hymn sheet, but it is good to know.
Yep.
But it is cool. It's cool, and shout out. It was 2021. Whew, thanks, Luke. Um,
But it's interesting tournament actually, and it comes on to like the positionings. It's a Night's Watch win,
yep.
which we talk about. Night's Watch win, Night's Watch win, Night's Watch win, Night's Watch get banned, Lannisters win. But Baratheons came second and third.
Yeah.
Which I think's great play.
It is.
Just
Yeah,
great play.
it is interesting. It's a very interesting thing, because it is obviously only an 8-man event, and it's quite clear that we saw there. I am convinced that either Magyar Khan or Tice probably couldn't show up. I'm guessing Magyar couldn't turn up, and as a result, Tice stepped out, being one of the local guys anyway. Probably the guy who ran the event, being one of the main guys at Rotterdam. So he allowed the other guys to play. But yeah, really interesting to see that happen. And Baratheon's taking 2 and 3. Yoren, he's again one of the main guys from Rotterdam White Scars. He's coming over to the GT as well, and he has been a Baratheon player for a long time. Loves them, so good to see him doing well.
I think we've got a big bid there for best in faction Baratheons right there.
We do, yeah. We'll see who else comes repping Baratheon. Baratheon are just still like, I don't understand.
Loved by the
so
small
popular.
folk.
Why does everyone like Baratheons, man? But actually, I heard a convincing argument. Some people like the aesthetic because it reminds them of like medieval, proper like knights and things like this and style. And then you've got guys running around with 2 hammers who just look stupid.
Nobody used the Sentinels, so it's fine.
Should use Sentinels. But yeah, no, cool. Really interesting 3-round event, won by Night's Watch. Interestingly, the only Night's Watch entry. Sad. Ah. And then we go from this event to Lincoln. And sorry, guys, I shouldn't laugh. Lincoln is, unbeknownst to me, I found out, the border of the north and everything above it is considered beyond the north, beyond Saviour. Because if you look at the faction breakdowns of these guys here, you see 4 Night's Watch in a 10-man event, and 2 Lannisters. Oh, sorry, 2.
Yeah, I would say this was by far the highest concentration of top tier lists that I'd ever seen. Like, I'm not saying there's never been more top tier lists in a tournament, but the sheer concentration within a 10-player event was huge. We're talking 4 Night's Watch players, 3 Lannister players, which, in case anybody's not 100% aware, Tyrion is now actually like the 3rd highest ranked commander in the game.
Yep.
And 2 Targaryens brings us to 9, and then our poor friend Dan, who I took with us, who played Starks. So it was a very competitive event. The lists are generally all pretty competitive. The Lannister lists are relatively faith heavy, which is their natural counter to Night's Watch, their better counter. I wouldn't say that they were necessarily like in there as the best, like Night's Watch counters that can be fielded from my own perspective of playing Lannisters. But I do think that, like list wise, it was heavy on the top end, around like this, fabled kind of like TTS meta that you never see in real life, right? Like that, like A, TTS meta doesn't even look like this, and B, yeah, it really does happen in real life. It was quite interesting. So obviously, I can't make any complaints at all, right? I took Night's Watch. What I found very interesting was I played 2 Night's Watch players a couple of times. Like, people said sorry to me because they were playing Night's Watch, and also specifically sorry that they'd picked Offal into the pairing, like into the matchup. And I find that crazy. A, because I'm playing Night's Watch, so
Don't
like you don't have
apologize.
to make you don't have to make any excuses about why you're playing Night's Watch. I'm playing Night's Watch. But also B, like I genuinely do feel like I say this all the time, like I genuinely feel that a player should never, ever, ever have to apologize for what they're playing. Like it is not hyper competitive. It is not over competitive. It is not bad for a person to play something, which is why I'm against bans. You know, like I feel that a person should never feel bad about what they've put on the table. I try to never ever make a person feel bad about what they're playing. I just see it as a challenge. And actually, I want you to play very, very good stuff because I see it as great. I get to take on the proper challenges in this game. I sort of see the flip side of that other coin, which is there are certain matchups that I believe that some factions literally can't win currently when played right. So I understand that, like, I'm really hesitant to play Baratheons, particularly in a tournament, because I don't believe that I have any chance to beat Mother of Dragons. Like, I really don't, and I don't think I really have a chance to beat a Night's Watch off the gun line either. So I think that one's more up in the air, more dice related. Even then, if I face those matchups, my opponent shouldn't have to apologize for what they've played. They shouldn't have to say sorry that the game was ruined by their choice. Because A, to me, the game's still not ruined. It's still a challenge. I'll still take it on. I'll still do the best I can. B, we're playing on stats. It's an ELO format. I will be adequately rewarded if I do win that matchup, and I will be adequately compensated for having lost it. So there is no like requirement there for me to worry about having picked something weaker or picked something stronger. I picked Night's Watch this time. I am nowhere near as rewarded for having won with Night's Watch than if I'd gone with Lannisters and won with Lannisters.
I will actually make a point on that as well. Like me and Carlo were talking about something we're going to cover later on, and we were talking about like ELO changes and things like this. And I actually looked at where me and Carlo would be in relation to the various system, and this is before Carlo went away for the event. Carlo went away with an ELO which was like marginally behind myself. He was like a couple of ranks below. I think he was like 1670-ish, and he ended the event, a four game event, on just over 1700, 1707. He gained a roughly 35 to 40 ELO over 4 games. Like, to put that in perspective, other players can do that in like 1 or 2 games. Like, and that's because he's playing awful. That's because he's playing John. Like, that's exactly why it was. So it was like, yeah, he'll probably win. And the only reason he won as many points as he did at 40 points, pretty
It's
much.
because I was playing against other Night's Watch.
Yeah. If you'd have played against like the other games,
and
there's actually a chance you'd have won less than that.
Interestingly, to get into the intricacies of the tournament, I actually played John for the vast majority of the event. I played Othel into Targaryens, but I played John 3 times into Night's Watch, and then into Lannisters. So as things stand, I believe that John is one of the chronically underrated commanders in the game right now in terms of what his actual position as a commander is.
Gotcha.
He's rated in and around like 15 or something like that, at like a plus 50. And I took my own advice, which, you know, I'm always giving people. If you think somebody's underrated, then play them. That is the best way to A, fix their ranking, and B, for you to gain as much ranking as possible. So, yeah, all I will say is Night's Watch were incredibly easy to pick up and just play with. I got numerous rules wrong, actually, in terms of like, I constantly forgot my own rules. I forgot that the Scorpion had Vicious. I kept putting, I put Othel's Vicious card on it because I didn't know I already had Vicious. I also kept forgetting loads of John's rules. John has quite a few rules going on, but I mean, the game where I played Othel specifically, it was just so easy and obvious of what to do. And I would have liked to practice a little bit more because I think it was I really was kind of lucky to get through some games, and I very much learned as the tournament went on and got better as the tournament got on. But I had only ever played one game of Night's Watch before the event in 2021. And I'm not talking like in person or anything like that. Like I've not been playing on TTS. I've not been doing anything. I've barely even watched any Night's Watch games actually because people haven't been streaming them. People haven't been recording them. Nobody seems to think that they're interesting. So yeah, I just picked the faction up, and I really do think that I felt that I needed to play them to be able to sit here and tell you that they're bonkers, and they are just bonkers. They're crazy. It's not the same as playing other factions. I know Lannisters inside out. I know everything about their deck, everything about their units. I am better playing Night's Watch, picking them up, than I can be, no matter how good I am with Lannisters, in my opinion.
Question. In a non-tournament setting, because in a tournament, I'm guessing you were trying to put, I say, a lot of effort in, but you were making sure where you could that you made the right plays wherever you could, right? In a non-tournament setting, or if you stopped caring as much, do you think you'd start making mistakes with Night's Watch purely through almost lack of motivation or lack of interest in your own game, because it was that not unenjoyable, but that autopilot that you'd almost fall into autopilot and actually start making mistakes because you just weren't interested in remembering what was good decisions or working out what were good decisions. You just think, that's fine. Think you'd ever do that?
No, I don't think that. Partly because I don't think that I ever play that way.
That's
or at least never. Like I don't. Again, it comes back to this idea. I don't think there's any difference between playing in a tournament and playing outside of a tournament.
Oh yeah.
To me, they're games. They're games, and I give them my full attention pretty much always.
But I mean, as like at the end of a
If I'm telling you that, I just didn't try that game, then I'm probably just tilted and looking for an excuse.
Oh, 100%. But I mean, as in like the end of a 4-day game, like a 4-game day, I should say. Did you find that by game 4, it was kind of like not that you lost motivation, or it was like your attention span and you're just tired, and so you're less likely to pay attention. And it's not so much you're more likely to make mistakes, but you're just less likely to think about literally every single little thing. And as a result, you can just autopilot them much easier. Did you find that?
Like I say, I learned throughout the event. I was getting better with the deck. By the 4th game of the day, I knew very specifically what I was going to try and achieve. And yeah, lose one Tourney game, suddenly go win at all costs. Tournaments are hard. Like people who don't play 3-4 games in a day, or never have like entered an event and really gone for it, particularly being at the top end of an event. Not that changes the games at all, but I know a lot of people can become far more casual once they've lost a few games. Like once you've lost a few games and they're not playing to win anymore, you get a lot more conversation across the table and stuff like that. Personally, I really enjoy being at the top tables and giving it my all and knowing my opponent's giving it their all. But it is draining. It is tiring. I have never not played a tournament day and come away with a headache. Always 100% have a headache, and I'm drained and knackered because it always takes all of your mental capacity to be playing a game. And one of the things I think about the Night's Watches is that because they are so straightforward, particularly awful, it can really, really help in a tournament format because it's so straightforward of what your game plan will be.
Interesting. Cool. Right, we'll move on to the next event, because I think the next event is one that's worthy of probably a little bit more discussion while also less.
Mm-hmm.
So the same amount. Classic. So we see here, this is the Sunday Slaughter event that was won by Chris Tran, Sunday Slaughter himself.
Big man.
Big hacker, cheater. Bob was the tournament organizer, right? And he came second. So he was clearly cheating. And his mate, Chris, winning it, clearly cheating. 100%. No questions.
Inside job.
Yeah. Gamers Haven's an inside job. There you go. There's your news from 2021. No, obviously it sounded like it was a great event. And Chris, in case people didn't know, Chris won the event and he won a Greyjoy starter and a Greyjoy box or something, I can't remember. And he actually donated them to another one of the opponents. I think it was I don't know who it was on the list. I can't find them now. But he donated it to a father and son who'd come down to play, and it was like their first tournament they'd ever gone to. So actually, like huge work in like trying to build up people's like community and things like that, and all of that. So that's huge respect there from I think everyone in the community, to be honest. But yeah, no, really interesting because it was a limited format. Let's just quickly remind ourselves of the limits. Night's Watch, no John, no Othel. Watch Captain is unique, and Relentless only works on melee. One conscript only, no Othel NCU. Mother of Commanders, Jesus. Mother of Dragons,
Mother
Commander.
of all commanders is
Mother
banned.
of all commanders. Mother of Dragons is banned, and yeah, charges are one action. I don't know why
that was pre-FAQ. That was pre-FAQ. They'd already decided that charges were one in terms of red cloaks, obviously being pretty much the only thing that impacted.
They 100% should have just deleted that and just been like, read the goddamn rules.
read the FAQ. Yes, so obviously a very, very heavy ban system. Othel and John gone is, I think, a huge part of the Night's Watch strength. However, I still think that they're a very efficient faction. I still think that you could enter with them and do very well at that point. To then, on top of that, take that Relentless away is another thing. Plus the Othel NCU. I understand that, this was effectively come to almost by community consensus sort of thing of what people wanted. I don't necessarily agree with, I don't agree with bans in principle, as I've spoken about. I don't agree with those particular bans myself, as if we look at it, we can see there, obviously it resulted in a low Night's Watch take up, but you can see that Night's Watch are way down, right? So it's so hard to get it right. You know what I mean? Like in terms of like they are still viable, but they're not dominating. Anyway, that's why I'm just think like bans are so subjective, they're so personal, and you're always going to create a new most powerful thing. Where as soon as we knew that Night's Watch most powerful stuff was banned, Targaryen's most powerful stuff was banned. Not to take away from Chris at all, like to A, understand the ramifications of that, and B, play through and win. Still, it's a 100% legitimate tournament win, but I absolutely would have turned around to you and did turn around and say, okay, then Lannisters win the tournament. To me, it is as simple as that. If you ban those things, then Lannisters are just as dominant of what's left as those things are dominant of the game right now, in my opinion.
And even leaving that, there are other Targaryens outside of Mother of Dragons which can run and be competitive. So if you'd have put money on Targaryens or Lannisters, and I think we go back and we said it, we just said that's not a surprise at all. We'd expect that. And we see here Bob pipped to the post by Chris by 1 secondary point, SP, in answer to Luke. It's the SPs, the secondary points, 4 for a crushing victory or a wipeout, which is a crushing, 3 for a minor victory, 2 for a narrow victory, 2 for a narrow loss, 1 for a minor victory, and a big fat 0 for a crushing loss. Depending on which one.
As laid down by Simon, by the way, nothing to do with my choice or stats or anything like that. That just is Simon tournament document assigned way that their Swiss works.
Yeah.
Also, interestingly, I feel like a 1 dragon build can be as good as MOD. Did Bob actually run a single dragon?
He did not run a dragon.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
But anyway, all of that aside, people say that they really enjoyed the event, and so that's for me. It's like always the really difficult part, which is like I am personally, in principle, completely against bans. But obviously, it's attracted a really good big crowd and had a really good event. for me, the thing is that I personally don't need there to be bans for me to want to play the game. But it seems like this set of people really didn't want to play the game unless there were bans. And for me, that's like a whole it's a whole thing that I don't personally understand, because to me, I never apologize for your list, never apologize for what you're playing with. You're playing the game the way it's intended by the designers. If they can't make it fair, then they can't make it fair. But that's the game we play. That is A Song of Ice and Fire 2021. And I'm also playing that game. And I've come here and I've set my own level of challenge by what list I've brought and what I'm trying to take on. And personally, like, I find it really, really. People are too upset. Again, it comes back to this. People are too obsessed with whether or not they win a game, as opposed to whether or not they're doing well by comparison to like how well they're expected to do. Like,
yeah, I think,
and again, and like, sorry, but Bored to Death,
yeah,
coming 3-1 with Baratheons, even into this limited format, is a bigger achievement than taking Lannisters to the win. And I haven't looked at the numbers, but I'm pretty sure they both achieve almost exactly the same ELO gain for the tournament, because he's done it with under, significantly harder conditions.
and he did win. He won against a Night's Watch player as well. Okay, it's Donald Night's Watch, which is not as highly rated as the Offal, which we know about, differing of nearly 100 points now, which is crazy. But it's still a worthwhile win. So yeah. But yeah, games against players and just playing games, regardless of what factions people play, like, should all enjoy. And yeah, Bored Alex should definitely take that as a victory. And go and be happy. Except you lost to ORJ Bill, thus proving that ORJ Bill is one of these people who just does not play enough. He's actually really good.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But I have to say, that whole kind of like, like lesson learned, Carlo just says be okay with losing. That's a lesson that I still constantly, and like a sentence that I have to tell myself, like, I hate losing, like I will not sit here and say that I'm okay with losing. I just have to, you just have to put it into perspective, and that's what stats is about. It very much allows you to put things into perspective. And I'm almost definitely going to move on, as Charles asked before, I said I'll win and then move on. So that's Night's Watch done. Very much be moving on to either probably Baratheons next. I really do think that I'll have to get very used to losing. I do not for a minute think that I am some kind of. I don't think that I can go against the grain of how bad I personally think that Baratheons are. I think that they're chronically overrated right now based on previous ban-based tournaments and the effects that they have on the rankings. We've been dancing around that subject a lot, which is that Night's Watch and Targaryens are both heavily fallen. Baratheons have shot right up. Lannisters are back up again. Again, those two specifically, I feel like when you start taking Mother of Dragons out the question, they are both way, way, way more viable. And it's almost a case of like, people submit whatever you want, play whatever you want. It's not going to humongously change things, and things will reset very quickly. But it's almost like stats manipulation, in that their rankings are currently way higher than I believe that they are in just an open field meta.
Oh god, yeah. I no word of a lie, as a player who looks at the rankings a lot and decides what I'm going to play in one-off games, or things like that. I look at the power rankings constantly, and I'm like, right, which is a good hero, what is a good commander to pick in a game that I want to play this week? And if I play a game, this is the kind of list I should be running. I am not looking at Baratheons. I've played plenty of Baratheons over the last week or so. I am not going to be picking Baratheons. I'm going to be looking at neutrals or perhaps even Greyjoys and going, whoa, that's a Greyjoy commander I can get some wins with. Let's go. Which is another thing we shall come on to later on. But Greyjoys have seen release. Only 2 of them entered into the event, and they strung 2 wins from 2 players
Just
across the whole
quick
event.
click on those lists. Do they have much non-starter box stuff? Iron
We've got
makers, yeah.
Iron Makers, Trappers,
Trappers, yes. Okay, yeah. So that's very much non-starter box.
Standards-ish.
Non-starter box
And again, this is
heroes.
Asher
Ye-
list. Stormcrow
Yeah,
Mercenaries, interesting. With 2 NCUs, fair enough. And then we've got Victorian
yeah.
Jackal.
Iron makers. There we go. We're not talking about a limited Greyjoy army here. We're talking about Greyjoys as they actually are fielded right now. So, yeah, there you go. Yeah, I think that Greyjoys are a bit underrated myself. I think that Deoxys is right that neutrals is probably where it's at. And considering that I feel like neutrals and Baratheons are practically the same army with a different neutrals just have a more limited commander selection. They still pretty much field the same units as each other. Yeah, I should just move to neutrals rather than moving over to Baratheons. I don't think I have quite enough paint in neutrals.
Bob says that these guys are newer players to Greyjoys or newer players to the game, which is fair enough. That happens, right? And it just so happens they picked up the game because of that. But actually, it's telling though that this isn't the only place where we see Greyjoys low down the stats. When we look at the next event, which we will look into, or not so much the next event, but when we just remind ourselves of this event, I should say, and the final event, which we'll get to in a second. There is a distinct lack of 2 things. Just a quick reminder of the event that Carlo played at. We saw 4 factions represented, and only one of them was Starks, not a single Baratheon, not a single Free Folk, not a single neutral, not a Greyjoy. Now, no Greyjoys in the UK is kind of standard because we've only seen the starter box, so people tend not to take them. So we only saw half the factions represented here. And then in this event, okay, there's bans, so Night's Watch are less common, Targaryens are less common, but we still see them in the event. We still see no neutrals whatsoever, including from ORJ Bill, who is a renowned neutral player, as with Chris Tran, who has opted to take Lannisters over neutrals. Part of it to do better in the event, part of it because he wanted to try something different, whatever. Still no neutrals, still no free folk. Like, I have no idea. I mean, I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
People don't like free folk, but like, not seeing free folk across what is now a 32 men tournament, effectively. That's crazy. If they say 32 men, 32 person.
Yeah.
You include the 8-person event in a 6-person event basically in the Netherlands. There's still no neutrals and still no free folk.
Yeah.
Like, what? I can't even explain that. I just
interested in the design that they've come up with. I guess.
Sad days.
But all that huge discussion around bans, stuff like that. Like I say, it sets up a new set of balance.
Yep.
I do actually say that there is huge props in understanding that balance and adapting to it and creating new lists. It is the biggest event run in 2021 so far.
Yep, 22 man. Yep.
Huge props to Chris Tran for winning it. Absolutely brilliant. Obviously, it would have been great if they could have run a 5th round, had a single winner. But I know that they were already time pressed. Like to run 5 rounds in a day is crazy. So without particularly 5 rounds in a day is just stupid. And I know that they were already very time pressed in their final game, and it didn't necessarily actually go to its full result. I'm myself in my final game in Lincoln. We went to time. I think that if the game had gone to 6 rounds, I don't know if we would get to 10 VPs first or not. But if we went to the ultimate conclusion of 6 rounds, I think I would be tabled. That we stopped at 7-5 was definitely the point at which the game was starting to turn away from me. So it would be a question of whether or not I could trade out the last VPs to win before I'm tabled. But that's awful. That's awful when he really goes the full distance.
Just
Um,
a quick question on that, because I think it is relevant. Um, and it's an interesting discussion point. Um, assuming like and some events do this, right? Assume that we have an event. Let's make it easy. 16 people. The chances of you getting matched up with someone of a roughly equal skill, assuming random seeding, is low, right? We have to assume that it's low, assuming you've
we're
got
talking about first round.
first round, yeah. Normal
Okay.
distribution of players. Unlikely you'll get someone of an equal skill. You'll probably have a differing amount, right? But over the rounds progressing, you're more likely to come up with roughly equal skill levels, right? Because you've got people winning more, and they're typically going to be facing
I
up
can see
against
where
you.
you're going. You
Yeah.
think that the last games in the tournament should be longer than the first games in the tournament?
Do you think, even if it's just a progression of time between first game and last game, do you think that should happen? Because the games should, in theory, be getting closer. Like, that's actually what you want, the games to get closer. Now, I'm not suggesting that this is easily possible, because you don't want to cut the first game short and make the last game
Mm-hmm.
longer. That's not the point. But do you think a progression in time like that would actually be an interesting or beneficial thing for an event? Like you say, people are going to be slower in the last game anyway because they're more tired as well.
Yeah. I think that it would be good, particularly if it's the final, that if possible, you allow it to play out. Like, that would be the ideal situation. Obviously, you're going to have to keep all other games to time.
Yeah.
It's just as simple as that. The tournament has to progress. You can't just have whatever. But I think, particularly if you're talking about the top table, and particularly if other people have finished and they're starting to come over to watch the game, they want to see how the tournament's going to finish. We're talking about the winner of this game is the winner of the tournament. Giving it an extra half hour could be a really brilliant way, actually, to really finalize the result and leave it with no asterisks over it. You know, like, because there's a tiny asterisk over the fact that, like, did I actually win that last game? You know, I won it by the rules of the tournament, not necessarily by the rules of the game. The rules of the game, I hadn't won yet, and it was not clear cut that I would win come the end of the game, but the tournament says that we finish and that we take the score at that point. The problem is that, yeah, like Bob says, everybody has to wait for the end of the event. People will want to travel home, you know, and that's it's just got to be the way it is. I don't think that you can bring the event down to anything less than an hour and a half per game. I think that's already an absolute stretch.
Yeah.
Players, I think, really have to be on the ball in terms of terrain, setup, getting the game going, finding their table, all that kind of stuff for an hour and a half to even be at all valid. I'm very glad that we are able to run 2-hour games between like all the setup time and that kind of stuff at the LGT. But that's thanks to the fact that we only have to run 3 games a day over a 2-day tournament. Really, it's very, very quick that you're going to want to have 4 games in your tournament, and it is doable, but people have to be quite experienced and drilled and know what they're getting into in that hour and a half.
I definitely would like I do like the idea of having an increased time limit. Maybe it's after the break, so your first 2 games would be, let's say, an hour and a half. That would give you 9 and well, if you start at 10, I say 10 because ideally you start at 9. But I know some people like to start a little bit later. But anywhere from 9 to 10, that gives you a finish time for the first 2 rounds around about 12 till 1, depending on when, for the 2 games. And then for the second half of the day, if you're running a 4-round event, maybe he's increased both games by 15 minutes. So the semi and then the final would be 1 3/4, which I know doesn't sound like that's half an hour extra across the whole event. It would take you till about the 4-5 o'clock mark, which is what you'd expect in my head for when a tournament to end. About 5 o'clock ish is, and that's a standard working day really at that point, isn't it? So,
Yeah.
but it depends on how long you set for lunch and things. And I know that is a big consideration for people, where some people will get away with, like, I mean, the event that we had in Bane Tempest, right? We did an event all the way back before lockdown. Did we even have a lunch break? We had like a 20-minute break, didn't we, for lunch or something like that? Not even that. Where people would just rather play games, and people went and got
Hmm.
food if their game ended early, and then came back and just ate it whenever. So we didn't really have a lunch break, so we were able to play 4 games at closer to the 2 hour limit, I think, if I remember rightly.
We actually ended after 3 games. It
Yeah,
was
yeah, we did.
slated for 4,
Yeah,
but we had an undefeated player after 3 because we had an incomplete 16 bracket, which normally results in 2 undefeated players after 3. But
we
actually,
had a weird three-way, didn't we?
because the winner, the third person who had 3 wins going into the final game actually lost rather than won against the person who'd lost already in the tournament. Suddenly you end up with full undefeated players, just one undefeated player after that round. And some guys from really far from Scotland, they were like, we're happy to go home. And we were like,
Yeah.
okay, fair enough.
But there is definitely merit there to something like that. But of course, that's got to work for you and the place that you're playing in. But someone
Yeah.
doing something like that, I think, would be interesting, especially if you're looking at a one-day event.
I think running a good tournament is so underrated as a skill.
Oh yeah.
And something that has to be learned, practiced, and should be shared between various tournament organizers and what's working well for people and what's being discussed. And yeah, I think it's very, very easy to make the wrong decision. Even though you got the best intentions at heart, there are too many games in a day. There are too short games. There is too long of a day that people can't travel for. There is all sorts of pitfalls, and maybe and it's very, very hard if you run one bad event. It can be very, very hard to recover from that. Like you're just not gonna get next time you try and run one. You think I'll do it better this time, and nobody signs up because the last event wasn't very good.
In my opinion, as long as you can run an event where everyone comes away happy, I think whatever you've done to do that is fine. And the guys at Sunday did that, so huge. I will never forget the tournament game that we had, Carlo, where we had to finish due to time in the middle of the middle round of the 3, and we went to time, and it was a game that was, I think you won by like 1 or 2 points, but it was a game where there was definitely possibility if the next round had been played that the result could have gone either way. You always sit there and go, "No, I'm going to win, mate. 100% going to win." But
No, I'm just smiling because it's a momentous life occasion for you, and it's just another tournament for me.
exactly, yeah, no. But the reason I remember that is because that
I mean,
was the
yeah,
first time in an actual proper tournament game
yeah.
where we'd taken it a game so close, and it was just like, even if I'd have lost that game, leaving it effectively unfinished, like the guys at Sunday said there, that last game, leaving it like a 3-2, it just feels unresolved. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? It feels like it's unresolved. And even if you lose those games, you don't mind because at least it's got a conclusion. No one likes a good book where you don't get the last half of the book, right? So this event, we'll very quickly talk about Lockdown TTS, TTS Lockdown Smackdown TTS 2. I'm sorry, Australians, I've messed
Australia
that up.
strikes back.
Yeah. Claw won it, so not Australia, but Indonesia.
Quick.
Absolute lols. But again,
Goddamn
I know, right?
Australians and Indonesians. They're but simultaneously the best American players and the best European players.
God damn them. So I won't dive too much into this. There's more list restrictions and things like that. And this was over a period of like, I say 3 weeks. It wasn't really 3 weeks because they kind of concatenated it a little bit. But we see yet again, this isn't. I mean, this is a restricted event where people are looking to gain ELO and trying to do lots of things and play around with like lesser played stuff where they believe that will win. And again, we're seeing neutrals picked. Still no free folk, and this isn't just me complaining that no one picks free folk, but it is now very interesting that across we've now seen nearly 40 players, the faction not picked
Not
at
one.
all.
Not one. So that's like
That's
one.
really
One.
interesting.
One would be 2.5% of players.
Yeah.
But it's none.
Yeah.
Less popular than neutrals.
Which
Crazy.
in this
Yeah.
in this event I can
This one,
understand why people pick neutrals, but like
Yeah.
Yeah.
I tell you what's super. I mean, talking about bans, right?
Yeah.
This is if you want to understand. Honestly, I don't think there's any difference between this and other bans. I genuinely don't. This is how subjective I think all bans are. This tournament was submit your lists, and if I think they're oppressive, then I'll ask you to submit them again. And that, honestly, that's no different to a ban system in my mind. You know, like they're identical, which are what do people not like? And it's just like
That.
pick a thing out the hat.
Yeah.
And that's what people don't like. So it's interesting, you know, that we see Jayor, Asa, that we see what further down. I mean, we have a Jon Snow Offal pairing, Donal Noy Offal. I believe this is a Highlander event again. Oh no, this is a Highlander event. This is the first. This is the one that I talked about. This is a Highlander event. One of everything. But also with this idea of don't be oppressive as well. So we see watch captains not in crossbows and stuff like that. So yeah, again, a very interesting event. People feeling able to play Night's Watch, but like under slightly different guises. So very, very interesting that they take the win, but also plays quite low. So it's not like, hey, look, Night's Watch just dominate. This is possibly that ground that we were looking for, which is they have won the event, right? But come on, they're 3 of 8 entries. They're statistically the most likely faction to win the event just by number of entries, but they're also quite low down the table. So maybe this one hit it just right. Maybe Highlander can improve things, but I feel only again with this asterisk of if I think that your list is just you trying to take advantage of the Highlander format, then I'm going to say submit it again, which like I say, I don't have any issue with that. That's the same as any ban, in my opinion.
Yeah. You just don't know what the ban is until
you just don't know what it is until you see it.
Yeah. Cool. So, after all of that, lots of Night's Watch, lots of different Night's Watch stakes, lots of different tournaments that have been run. We have to look at the power rankings. We did say we'd cover them. And some people don't like this bit, some people like this bit. I think people go on about this, and I don't care. I'm going to show the faction graphs to prove how much I don't care about this. People have been saying, oh, Night's Watch aren't top, or Targs are now top, or whatever. And I'm like, yes, this gap between the two isn't as big. Because Targs gained a lot of points. But, look. Just look at that. Look at that there. They're the same bloody rating. Who is top on a given day is not relevant. Like, they are 1 and 2.
It's that office meme of like, they're the same picture. Like,
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
They are the same. They are, for the past month or so, their fates have just been intertwined. They are together. And interestingly, they're both suffering on the end of bans, and that, I believe, has caused their downward trend. They must maintain a phenomenal win rate to maintain a phenomenally high ranking. And if they're played under a ban system, they don't quite maintain. Like, you can believe that they're fun to play as, marginal, they're better. You know, we're seeing that these bans are bringing balance actually closer. It doesn't fix things, is my mind. But I do have to agree that if what we see is an effective bans, then what we're seeing is that the balance is undiverging. It's starting to come back to a closer set of things that can play against each other.
But we also just talked about how, in across all of those events, the mix of factions has lower diversity.
Yeah.
Which is actually the most interesting thing, is that you've now got, of the 8 factions, Greyjoy's basically, 2 picks across the whole lot. Greyjoy's free folk and neutrals were basically underrepresented to a huge extent. And it was the big 4, Targaryens, Night's Watch, Starks, Baratheons, who were seeing play. Or Lannisters as well, big 5.
Lannisters.
No. And even then, Baratheons and Starks are seeing play because, I mean, everyone will always play Baratheons because, like we said earlier, people just love them. Starks see like fringe play. Brian says Mammoths don't suck, they're awesome.
I think he's catching up from the chat from quite a while ago.
I mean, that might have been lost. I haven't said Mammoths are terrible. I haven't actually said that this episode. Maybe they're not. Maybe they're good. I don't know. But yeah, there's this
we might know if one of the 40 tournament entrants over the weekend had played Free Folk.
Maybe, yeah. But it's damning, actually, in my head. Not Free Folk in particular, but it is quite damning that people are not finding the time to pick factions like that. And I know that Free Folk have always been not very popular. People don't like the Horde army and Horde aesthetic. Yes, having to paint 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7 more units before a tournament to run a viable list is slightly imposing.
Yeah.
But also, like, that
Free Folk were unpopular when they were one of the 2 most powerful factions in the game.
Yeah.
And Baratheons are popular despite their continuous existence at the bottom end of the faction rankings.
Yeah.
And look, this is also very specific. We're talking about on stats. We're not even talking about in general, right?
Yeah.
So don't come at me and tell me that like the people playing on stats are just here win at all cost players, do whatever, hyper competitive players, because most submissions that happen on stats are with Baratheons.
Oh,
and
gotcha.
Even when they're still like way popular.
600...
They might not be the number 1 most popular anymore.
I think they are. The 600...
It's possible.
600
I think
like
Lannisters could actually have more submissions.
630 games for Baratheons. I think Lannisters are on... I don't think it's 630. Oh, it might be. Yeah, no, they're breaking 700. Yeah, 700.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See. Lannisters had a resurgence in that, like, I think Lannisters are in a great spot in that they are very viable and popular.
Yeah.
You know, like, I do think that their space in the meta is very weird. I think that they're torn in that they are oppressing things below them and dominated by the things above them.
Can we just take a second, right? Because I've just realized this. Free Folk, as of right now, 134 losses, 134 wins. Free Folk are perfectly balanced.
Thanos knife.
Yeah. Thanos
perfectly balanced as all things should be.
And Lannisters are not far off. Obviously, yeah, no, that doesn't equate. But yeah, random fact. So yeah, that's something that did concern me a lot. The lack of free folk. And as a free folk player, like, of course I'm going to pick that up and be like, why aren't people playing this? People should play this. It's really good. But people don't, right? And that's fair enough. But what is really interesting is that we've seen those rankings change. And one of the big ones that we have to talk about is not the rise of Baratheon, inverted commas. It's the continuous downward trend of Greyjoy. Like, Greyjoy started off as promising. You know, there was a period, okay, it might have been a blip, there was a period where they were looking like what I would call like a second tier faction. They were equivalent to Lannister. And in what we've seen across the game, we're starting to see it kind of Starks creep in a bit more. But you saw the top two, Night's Watch, Targaryen, sorry. And then you see Lannister, Greyjoy, Free Folk as being these middle three that were kind of very kind of like blah, 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 but they were all
could win a tournament.
Yeah.
Like
maybe.
You know, like right conditions, right player, don't get terrible matchups. You know, like dodge a particular matchup, can win an event, right? I'd never say they're the favorite, but yeah, Starks,
they were just
Baratheons, neutrals.
Starks particularly have come back up, and I think more recently have been like, actually, no, we can compete with those middle tiers, but we're still finding it hard against the top stuff, but we're going to compete with certain builds. Baratheons and neutrals very much fell into that bottom tier. Baratheons have got this resurgence. We've talked about why that might be with the ban system and people playing them and just that whole iteration there. But also, like, Greyjoys are falling off, and it's not losing to Baratheons. This is the thing. It's not just losing to Baratheons.
Mm-hmm.
They're just not winning.
No.
And it's really interesting. And you can see here, looking at the graph and look at that downward trend. I still think of Greyjoys as being in that second tier with the likes of Lannister, with the likes of Free Folk, but they just aren't. They just aren't. And if the trend keeps up,
I've watched TTS play of Greyjoys a decent amount,
yep.
probably more than anything. Like pretty much a single player. I've watched.
Is it Lockerbie by any chance?
Yeah. I've watched Lockerbie play Greyjoys quite a lot. I've never played against Greyjoys in person. I've been to multiple gaming groups. There was a Greyjoy player up in Scotland when I went, but I've never managed to be paired up against one. I've never faced them. So I can't actually tell you that much about what it feels like to be opposite them on the table. So they're still very unknown. I still think that they're going to be wildly dependent on whether or not the player playing them knows them well, and also whether or not their opponent knows them well, because there's the big question mark of whether or not you've ever seen Greyjoys play, and I do think that the Greyjoys play quite differently to a lot of the factions too.
What's interesting, and Just Hughes just kind of mentioned it in chat there, might be because only the starter set is out right now for people only playing on tabletop. Well, that's interesting because different parts of the world have starter or they have the expansion units. I think what's really interesting, I think people on the tabletop are not running Greyjoys because they haven't got access to other stuff, so they're running other factions. Because they know that running Greyjoys without those stuff is probably poor.
Mm.
So you typically end up, and this is not de facto true, and in fact the tournament we looked at before kind of disproves this a little bit, but I definitely am beginning to see or believe that people are running Greyjoys with only starter stuff, knowing that it's either weaker or they're weaker players not knowing that them running only starter stuff is actually a weak choice. And the better players of the faction are actively saying, look, can do this, but I'm not going to because it's not good. There is obviously some credence to say that that's not true. It's true of any stats that we look at without individuals, But I think that's probably true because simply why would you turn up to a physical event and play something when you haven't got half your army? If you're a decent player, you just won't.
I think the Greyjoys have the Baratheon level following, so I think that once stock isn't an issue, once the faction is a bit more fleshed out, we expect to see Baratheon level play, no matter how powerful they are.
Yep.
Like, people are obsessed with Greyjoys in the same way that they're obsessed with Baratheons, irrespective of the play style, irrespective of its power level, irrespective of what commander's good. They just love the faction, and they've been desperately waiting for it for ages.
Yep.
I hope that particularly in the UK it gets fleshed out real soon, and that we see more units for them.
Really interesting question from Anders there in relation to like how we think ratings will change based on releases. We'll get to that in a second, mainly so we can both think about it for a little bit. Yeah, I'll be interested to see how Greyjoys recover. I did want to point out now, though, Greyjoys have kind of been released for 5 months. Basically, they're a Q1 release. You could argue they came out before that. This is, I'm not going to say problematic from Simon's perspective, but it is pretty damning that we've seen now we're approaching half-year release for a unit or a faction. And it's dubious whether it's hitting the tabletop very often because people are having the discussions like we've had, like stock.
Yeah.
It is.
So all those releases were supposed to come at the same time, right?
Yeah.
Like, supposedly that whole faction's been out together. And yeah, if we're talking about like, hey, but maybe people only have the starter, then yeah, we are back to, hey guys, stock problem. But we've been over that conversation so many times.
We won't
So
visit it,
many
but it
times.
is interesting.
Yeah, yeah.
Specifically for Greyjoys.
Yeah.
Anders. So, how theories of how the rankings will change. Now, before we go into this is complete hot takes, and we don't know a single thing about most of the stats for most of the units. I will comment on my bad boys, the Free Folk, first of all. How do I think Mag the Mighty and 1-1 and the Frozen Shore Chariots? Well, we know what Mag and 1-1 do.
Nobody cares.
Yeah. I think Free Folk will go up in power level. I think Free Folk will go up in power level for one simple fact, and that is Free Folk will pull down wins from the ability to put two lists on the table, which are vastly different. Like literally and just mechanical. It's like, do I think Mag the Mighty is going to be as powerful as Mother of Dragons? No. But the fact Mother of Dragons can put a list and say, look, here's 3 dragons and some stuff, and then they can also put out, here's a bunch of Unsullied Pikemen, deal with that. Completely different solutions, completely different problems. And Free Folk will be able to do, oh, look, here's a bunch of shitters, and look, here's some big things that will come and stomp on you. You don't bring the right solutions, you play list chicken, you'll lose out. That doesn't mean Free Folk will gain massive rating, because by definition, if it's a 50-50 split or whatever like that, they'll lose just as much as they win. But if they're the one presenting the alternative problem to solve, they will nearly always come out slightly on the win of that. So I do think Free Folk will go up in power slightly with that change. Unless they're absolute dog trash, they're crap. In which case, it will have no effect. Night's Watch Hero Box 2. I mean, it's obviously going to make Night's Watch better.
And you go up from there? I mean, they have been higher, but I don't think they can go up from their current position.
Not significantly. Not unless they start beating on Targs. Night's Watch can start really beating on Targs with some of the lower commanders, with some of the additions, and that would make Night's Watch increase overall. But it would have to be consistently beating Targs.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of its actual faction ranking, if their other commanders became more viable, then the faction would go up.
Yeah, it has to be other commanders, though.
Of course. But the Othel build isn't going to get any significantly better. I don't think it cares about those things. Targs, it's a huge question about how much those Blood Riders cost. If they cost 8, then yeah, they just got stronger.
Why would you ever fucking take
8,
veterans?
Then it is really, really, it's going to be a almost auto-include unit. I feel
in certain
9. People say that they wouldn't play it at 9, but I feel like 9's about right for it. But just because I can't see it at 8, it's significantly better than Flayed Men, who are already a problem at 8.
Yeah.
Ranger Vanguard. I don't think they make an impact. Though Ranger Vanguard could be an answer to Mother of Dragons, because cavalry is an answer to Mother of Dragons. So it is possible that Ranger Vanguard put Night's Watch in a position where they can now reliably beat Targs. It would be interesting if that's the case.
They'd have to have something though, because if they're just glorified, if they're 7-point cavalry and just glorified like melee versions of Ranger Trackers, like the problem is like Ranger Trackers are not picked.
Yeah, but if they're Night's Watch level 7 points, then
but they're tracker level 7 points, right?
Yeah,
possible. It's like fair.
For Targs, we're talking about Targ Heroes 2, i.e. Blood Riders.
Blood Riders, not Targ Hero 2. No, it's Blood Riders.
Is it not called Targ Heroes 2? Okay, yeah, Blood Riders. Yeah. Whatever.
Thornwatch.
Okay. 7 points? No, I don't give a shit. If Thornwatch are released and they're 7 points, Baratheon ranking goes down because people try to play them and they're that bad.
I am firmly on the belief that Baratheons will see an increase from Thornwatch. Not straight away, they'll drop straight away because anything new ever coming out for Baratheons in any faction will always see a drop immediately. I think Baratheons will see an increase if their rating isn't inflated artificially. the point, and that is because Thornwatch have activation efficiency or action efficiency in the attack and retreat. Like, it's just something that Baratheon simply don't have. And the stuff that we see that is good at doing it, we've seen Loras with Rose Knights being semi-efficient with the amount of auto wounds, but the other stuff which is doing pretty well is the faithful side builds where they can just give attacks to things. It's activation efficiency, which is therefore going to pull them up slightly. Do I think Thornwatch are good? No, I think they're shite. Do I think they'll probably see Baratheons up? Maybe, because that's how bad Baratheons are.
No, I disagree.
Really?
Yeah. Unless they're 6 points, then they're not. I mean, you're missing the fundamental thing, which is like for somebody to go up, somebody else has to go down. And
Oh,
other
gotcha.
people are about to get more powerful, and Baratheons are not about to get more powerful. If they're coming in at 7 points, the faction has not got more powerful.
No.
It has not improved its best build in any way. So it is de facto worse.
I think it gives an opportunity with it, specifically because Thorngard are 6 movement, something that
No,
Baratheon don't have access to outside of
no.
cavalry. I think they do. I think it adds something to the faction, and I think it means that they can take points off, ironically, Greyjoys. Greyjoys and Free Folk, I think, will struggle with that kind of unit, which is, you know, what it is.
Karstark Spearmen, if they're 5 points, Stark's reliable. If they're 6 points, then no, they don't really do anything.
If
They're not
Spearmen are 5
berserkers at
points,
6.
if Karstark Spearmen at 5 points, you 100% put a Mormont veteran in that unit to make it a 6-point unit, and laugh when it sits on an objective, and go, "You ain't killing that thing."
Maybe, but like actually Stark's real problem right now is that their 5-point unit of Stark Sworn Swords is just so anti-synergistic with A, the faction, and B, holding an objective because of the way it kills itself. So like a faction which just a unit which can just delay, be used for activations, can be used in that way. I don't care how strong it is. Just being defensive and 5 points is actually a big hole in what the Starks do right now.
Yeah. If it's 6 points, then Tully shields exist. Like,
Yeah.
I don't care. I literally don't care. So
Silence Men is a huge question. Don't know. Actually, don't know what that does to Greyjoys. I have no idea. No idea.
wouldn't you like to predict that?
Clegane Brigands. It's not impossible that it's an answer to Mother of Dragons, but they have to be cheap. They have to be 6 points cheap. If they're 7, then it's the same answer, which is Hedge Knights, which is not good enough of an answer.
I have to
because they're
admit,
worse than Hedge Knights.
if Clegane Brigands are 6 points, I can't see Clegane Brigands being 6 points. I think they're almost too good for 6. In that they give specifically Lannisters a 6-point option to so many weaknesses that they have, which is why I don't think they can be 6 points. And you said it yourself, it actually answers so many little things for them if they're 6. Even though the unit is not actually that strong in itself, just having a 6-point cavalry unit that's fast is a weakness in the Lannister. Lannisters generally lacking maneuverability. I think that's going to be a huge boon.
All right, so here we go. People reckon that Karstark's are 6, that people reckon Clegane's are 7, Thornwatch are 7. Some people think that Blood Riders are 8. I'll tell you right now, if those things are true, then those first 3 do nothing for any of those factions, and the Blood Riders do a ton for Targaryens. So I currently, if those things are true, I don't see them impacting the meta in any way than it further separates Targs and Night's Watch from the rest of the people.
I
don't
even
see any meta shakers. I don't see anything changing hugely.
I'd be super honest, I don't actually think that Blood Riders do anything for Targs. I think they're a good unit, a better unit than the Vicious Bolton unit, but I only think that they're marginally better. And so as a result, you won't see basically any change. Like, it's not going to make that unit of Blood Riders is not going to suddenly make them be able to kill the things in Night's Watch that they can't kill with by men.
Maybe.
It doesn't actually. If anything, it just pushes everyone else down. It doesn't affect their Night's Watch win rate. And the only way that we can realistically change Targaryen and Night's Watch is if they impact each other with the changes. Realistically.
And I'm with, and just use absolutely right that Baratheons don't change until Highguard and Cavalry come along, and then I do believe that they do change if the Lancers come at 6 points. If the Highguard and Lancers come in at 6, which I believe is leaks, right? Yeah. If that comes in true, then that does change things. Now I believe that Baratheons are way more maneuverable, way into the discussion around like where Lannisters are at in terms of its build options and what it can put on the table and stuff like that.
It is also attachments, Carl, but
don't care.
Cool. I just don't care.
Maybe unless they're chronically undercosted 1 point attachments that don't allow weakened plus another rule, which I believe they all don't allow weakened plus another rule.
Classic Greyjoys.
They're 2 points, nobody cares. At 1 point, yeah, okay.
Yeah, that's if they're named unique attachments in the same costing system that we see Greyjoys attachments, the likes of Newt, Asher 1 point, Carl 1 point, those guys, if we see them coming out, that's insane. God forbid, and please, for the love of God, Simon, I really, really fucking hope this is not true. Please, for the love of God, don't make them a 3 point attachment with. If any one of them has a 3 point attachment with Relentless for a cavalry unit, like, I wouldn't even know where to begin. Oh, mate, no. Relentless.
Why?
Relentless.
Okay, well, for start, you can put them in Outriders. That's
Relentless Flayed Men, Relentless Outriders.
Yeah, but like
Relentless vets. Move, shoot.
Yeah, okay.
Move, march, move, shoot.
Vet is move, shoot, charge, right?
It's not.
Oh no, just move,
charging.
Shoot.
Just move, shoot.
Move, shoot.
You could go move, march, move, shoot.
Yeah, but you can already do that on your maneuver. So the thing is I don't care about it that much because you already have the maneuver.
But an activation, a 3 point activation in a cavalry army, you really want
they already have the Unsullied Officer.
Yes, but it has to be an infantry.
They already have units that like can utilize it. They already have ways to increase their activation count. They already have spearmen who have great profile. Like the spearmen have as good a profile as any of those cavalry units. Spearmen make better use of it because they want the maneuver more than cavalry do. They already have one. Like, yeah, the only thing, my initial concern is Outriders, because Outriders are long-range cavalry that hit on 3s. It's not onto all these melee units. I'm not like that. I don't care that much about you giving that turning that cavalry into an 11-point cavalry unit. I'm like, yeah, all right then. Go on then.
I think well, fair enough. I think it's worth it. You get a Flayed Men charge off into somebody and then go smash, smash. That's going to be a dead unit from nearly anything in the game. Assuming there's no healing and other factors, which I know is a massive but, or what if, because a lot of folk factions that are good run the healing. But that'll chew 3 unit conscripts. Like, that's a dead unit conscripts, which is a good thing. It will chew through nearly anything. I have no desire to see. It might not even be good. That's the funny thing. I just think it would be fun to see on the enemy field. That's all. Yeah. There's also Fortune Seekers for Outriders at the moment, which is another discussion entirely. Anyway, Carlo. We've talked all about this. We haven't talked about the NRG event.
Yeah. True that.
Classic. Absolute classic. So, the NRG event is entering its last week. We haven't quite finished this last round. A couple of games left to play out. I don't believe there's many. I think it's just Jacob of Glace and Prince Whiskey are waiting to play. They're playing later tonight, so the round will be going live tomorrow. For anyone in this, event here, and we see at the top of the factions Lord Commander Bob with his Night's Watch, and Bloodraven with his Lances.
Big shock. Ish. I should never have gone against Bloodraven. Everybody knows that I rave that Bloodraven is Bloodraven's the only other Lannister player that I care about, which says a lot because a lot of good players play Lannisters.
So, by the way, sorry, Chris, Sunday Slaughter, get out of here.
Yeah,
Anyway,
not a Lannister player, so A, he can fuck off, and B, I still don't care.
I know this is Sunday Slaughter beef. Come on, let's go. Right.
Yeah. So I shouldn't have, I knew I was just going on the fact that I really don't think I think that you have to really outplay Mother of Dragons to beat it. I think that Grush didn't actually play Mother of Dragons, which I think's kind of crazy.
We've talked about this before. We love Grush here. Everyone loves Grush, right? But he doesn't have Mother of Dragons, it's worth remembering. He ran his
all right.
Jura list.
Okay, yes. So he ran his non-dragons list.
Yes.
Right?
Not his Go-Go list. Is in
yeah,
classic
which again is still
Grush
crazy.
Form. In
still
classic
crazy.
Craig form. Like, yes, he might have been outplayed Craig, whatever, but like, man, you are absolute classic of this. You're like
Weasel. Leet Teddy is a Stark player. Everybody knows that.
Interesting. But yeah, Craig absolute choked in that game. Picked the wrong list. And
I could not believe,
on the table,
particularly when I looked at Bloodraven's lists, because he doesn't run anything that I looked at them and I was like, none of those lists can beat dragons. Yeah. I could not believe that Grush chose not dragons. Because, I mean, Warrior Sons, poor fellows, they get eaten up by dragons. Red cloaks do nothing to dragons. Yeah. Like, all of this is dragon bait.
Oh, look, there's a one-shot for a dragon. Look, go to Bane, the mountain that dies.
But yeah, I do agree that Tyrion is a very good commander, and Bloodraven's a very, very good player. Interestingly, super, super interestingly, I was so confident that this was going to be a Targ Night's Watch match and that Night's Watch would win it. I am actually way less confident that Bob beats these Lannister lists because they are very much anti-Night's Watch Lannister lists, particularly that Tyrion one. So I am going to have to see the mode before I take a pick.
Fire and blood. Fire and blood. Fire and blood. Oh, that would be funny, wouldn't it?
If it's Fire and Blood, then it's still Night's Watch.
No, if it's Fire and Blood, it's definitely Bloodraven. Remember, this is Lord Commander Blood playing Fire and Blood. He'll just sit at the back and then lose in the last round when he realizes he hasn't killed anything. Absolutely.
I thought Bob was saying. I realize now he's saying he's going to face the Tyrion list, as opposed to like I thought he was saying. I'm pretty sure I'll be facing Lannisters. I was like, yes, I know you're facing Lannisters, Bob. But yes, yeah, I'm guaranteed. Surely you'll face that Tyrion list. Double Warrior Sons, triple Poor Fellows is the thing.
Shall I draw the list? Shall I draw the game mode then?
Yeah, do it. Am I allowed to give Bob advice? Because, I do actually really want Night's Watch to win the event, because I really don't want somebody to turn around and tell me that Lannisters are fine.
I mean, you can give Bob advice if you want to. I don't know why you'd do it live in front of his opponent, where his opponent can read it. But I guess this is actually fair. So, I mean...
Yeah. Bob, you can't kill the Warrior Sons. Kill the Poor Fellows. They're easy.
Fair enough. That's pretty sound advice.
It's as simple as that. Ignore the Warrior Sons. I don't even care if they charge you. Just go, yeah, all right, and then retreat from combat and shoot the warriors and shoot the Poor Fellows again. What's in the bag? What's in the list?
I'm just sorting them out now. Game of Thrones was played, and we just played Dark Wings, Dark Words, didn't we? And I hate Here We Stand, so that goes away. I'm the TO, and I can do what I want. So we've actually got some classics here. We've got a Clash of Kings, infinitely respawning commanders. Anybody? A Feast for Crows, absolute game mode classic, and I do enjoy Feast for Crows still, even if you can control objectives way off the court spile. Honed and Ready, absolute superb game mode. And Fire and Blood, my least favourite game mode by a country mile outside of Here We Stand for tournaments. What one do you want? And I know you're going to say Clash of Kings.
Charles, Portfellows are easy to kill.
Not for free,
like actually easy. They are easy to kill. I'm not saying they're easy for a 4-point unit. They're a 4-point unit who's as hard to kill as like a 5-point unit should be. But that's still a 5-point unit, like in terms of like how hard they are to kill.
Does that mean
all you gotta do is put some dedicated effort into it? But people think that like in a one-on-one matchup, because they cost more, they should win. No, you just point 2 units at it, poof, it's gone. Then you point 2 units at another one, poof, it's gone. That's how poor fellows lose. Like, I actually don't understand how people were so bad against poor fellows.
When you only roll 6 dice, you don't kill poor fellows with 2 attacks. That's what. Just out of curiosity, if poor fellows are like a 4-point unit that like a 5-point unit, does that mean Lannister list runs 2 poor fellows is actually a 42-point list into the new alt format? Is that how that works? Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Okay.
You want Clash of Kings, right?
Because you well, the forums exist now, but I'd still like to see people ask silly questions and do silly things.
And alternatively, I guess you want to see Fire and Blood so that Night's Watch win,
right? I believe that it is right that Night's Watch win this event.
Shall I rig it? Is that what you want me to... No, I won't rig it. No, obviously not rigged. Right.
You see a little question mark come up as he searches the deck.
Right click. No. Okay.
Come on. Show the people what they want.
There we go. Clash of Kings. There we go. Clash of Kings.
Here we go. It was just
going to be interesting.
There was only 4 Clash of Kings in the deck.
Just so people, just in case there is any cheating there, Feast for Crows, Fire and Blood, and Ready were left in. No magic here. Yeah, so Clash of Kings, which I do think favours Bob, certainly, because if you look at see where Tyrion's face is, it's Tyrion in Poor Fellows.
Again, that unit is very, very killable.
Yeah.
All you got to do is get around the Warrior Sons, and Lannisters just aren't that maneuverable. Be interesting, though. He assumes not to again give away tons of tactics. He's already said he assumes a Tyrion list. If that means that he ends up playing Jon, I assume he has a Jon Ranger Hunters list, right?
Oh, yeah.
Actually, I think that suddenly Tywin's Red Cloaks looks better. But it'd be a good game. It'd be a very good game.
And this is absolute fucking classic, right? With Clash of Kings, I'd have to double check. But you get the point the first time the enemy commander is destroyed. Meaning a Vargo Hote into the game mode to kill the commander will net you victory points, even if you don't kill the unit.
Yeah.
And well, we'll check the forums, but is that your commander unit anymore, Carlo?
I think not.
No.
So I genuinely think that unit won't be respawning if you assassinate the commander and then walk away from it, and then later kill it.
Yeah. Interesting, but that being said,
these are the kind of questions that I want to be asked on the forum because I'm actually kind of interested in them.
Yeah.
At what point does a commander unit cease to be a commander unit? Because he's made a relatively interesting ruling on what a commander unit is, which doesn't seem to marry up with how Clash of Kings allows commander units to be respawned.
And it does make assassinate for people who really, really already liked Expert Duelist as a rule. It does make Expert Duelist on that particular game mode just kind of silly because it's a 2VP ability that you can just use, and also your opponent can never have their commander's unit respawn, so it now misses out an entire section game mode, which just means Khal Drogo on Clash of Kings is just stupid. Like, actually just stupid. In my opinion. Yeah. Thing is, they don't have a unit. Yeah, I'll have to double check. Just for you. I would tend to agree that should bring them back, but we'll have. Anyway, so that's the game mode Clash of Kings for NRG number 2. Now, there was one other thing that we're going to have a quick look at in relation to NRG, and that is something we haven't talked about whatsoever, except when I first did it, and that is the ELO.
Almost forgotten about it.
Yeah. Now, I have got something on here that I do think is funny, but it won't matter, so it's fine, he says. If it's not fine and it does play out this other way, then you'll have to just make it work, I guess. I'll sort it out. Problem? Yeah, we'll see. So, here we go. Boom, and let's big. Here we go. So, this is the list of players and their ELOs as it currently stands. We have at slot number 1. They're not listed, by the way. This is just the players when they signed up for the event. We see Lockerbie in at number 1. He is currently winning the ELO change. Now, this was updated as of yesterday, I'll say about 7 or 8 o'clock in the evening, so I didn't get all of the final games that the guys at Sunday Slaughter played. So Chris, Bob, your ELOs are slightly behind. I'll update it when I get some time. I just haven't any time today since getting back from work. But that is generally speaking the ending ELOs at the moment. Chris and Bob will be slightly higher than what they currently are. I think it's going to be a difference of about 10-20 ELO. So, Lockerbie is the man to beat. Lord Commander Bob is up there as well, as is Bolton Skincare, as is Jon Snow Groupie. Brett, those 3 are the next kind of tier, if you will, in the leaderboards.
B tier.
B tier. Or A tier, right? Because Lockerbie's S tier. Got to call him S
Nah,
tier.
they're still B tier.
Okay, they're still B tier.
Those 3 names are definitely B tier players.
Players also that are worth having a look at for play games with. Mizatide, Ben, played against him plenty. Ben Duckers, he's up there actually at 60. He's in like that. He's in realms to actually reach that top level there, and people might lose their last round game, in which case they're going to drop 10, 20, 30 ELO depending on what they're playing. So actually, being 30, 40 ELO away is doable within 1, maybe 2 games, and that's the tournament game plus, depending on what your opponent gets. If you want to win it, of course, you've got to assume your opponent's going to win and smash out a load of ranking. But other players in there, Bloodraven there, as I said, Captain Co Dakota, he's up there as well as Drogon Ross. He's up there as well in the runnings. Players who might find it a bit harder though, there's a load of people in the middle. You know, there's tons of people in the middle. I'm not going to mention everybody. I'm sorry, Basti. Minus 92 and 130. That's about a difference of 200. That's probably neck end of 10 games. Probably
10 back-to-back wins.
10 back-to-back wins. It's not that I don't believe that you can do it. It's definitely fully possible. I just don't think it will happen. No offense, Basti. Yeah, that is just what it is. Corin Halfhand's up there as well, minus 80, and Gamma saying that he was pretty badly, minus 72. Hey, it's just one thing, and Gamma was like, yeah, maybe I was overrated when I started. You just had a rating, and now you don't. That's the vagary of points. Yeah, that's how it stands at the moment.
Lockerbie's doing great anyway, right? Like, Lockerbie's currently sat looking for Greyjoy Best in Faction, right? He's currently number 1.
Yep.
On those fronts,
Best in Factions, actually.
Yeah, presumably we're looking at Bloodraven making a big claim. We'll see what the last game is, but you know, there are Lannisters in and around who can threaten Bloodraven. Yep. I think Bob has effectively already won Night's Watch Best in Faction, whether he wins or loses. I think his SPs actually put him straight up ahead.
If he Yeah, so his
He's won.
SPs on 14 mean that Brett is the only contender who can get to 12 points. Oh
And
no,
he
it's
can't.
12. He can't even get to.
Yeah.
So if
Yeah.
so if Bob resigns, which he's
Yeah.
not going to do, if Bob resigns, Brett can get to the same TP and SP that Bob gets to, but he can't beat his UDs.
Yeah.
Actually, Clash of Kings he technically can, but he'd have to kill the commander's unit like multiple times. So yeah,
We've
Bob's
got
won the nice match.
Bloodraven obviously still unbeaten.
Yeah, but
There are some Lannister
Chris,
players, particularly Chris
Chris is
is in the
the
hunt for that based
yeah.
on the last game. I think he's the only other option right now. Yeah.
Yep, he is the only other option.
Um,
Tom
we've
and
got
Steve, Lord of the North, in for
yeah,
Targaryens, and Bruce. They're all
yeah,
within tension there.
all
Masara
down
is
to that last game.
likely the only Baratheon winner, but if he loses, of course, playing into Targaryens, it does open Baratheon players to people like Ardeep to potentially come in to steal that from him. Actually, but no, it looks like SPs are too far ahead.
Yeah,
So Masara's won the Baratheon one. Lockerbie is looking like the Greyjoy winner, but Dakota is there, so it all comes down to last game. So yeah, Bob's okay. I resign. No. Uh, what else we got? Francesco.
I think Bob still wins it even if he resigns.
He literally does.
Yeah.
The only possible way that he can not win it is if Brett kills something like 60 points of units, which means Brett needs to kill like the commander's unit like 5 times in the game and get a wipe, which is just not feasible. We've got so Starks. Francesco's currently leading, but we've also got Crag and Jesse all within shouting distance. Is like a lot to play for with the Starks. So go win it. And Free Folk again quite a bit to play for. Although Leica looks like he's in the clear lead with a game over waiting for Virtue. So he's got one more win under his belt. So if Leica loses,
of our 2 Free Folk entrants.
there's 3.
Okay.
The other guy's the Sir Jacob would place at the bottom there. But Waiting for Virtue can win it if he gets a crushing win. It would take him to 9 and 7.
Who's winning the neutrals?
Oh, Leica's actually won. Masara, right? Yeah, Masara.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does he get double prizes? Because he played neutrals and Baratheons, aka the same faction.
Actually, let's see. He's got 7, 8, and another 8, 16 plus. He's got 20 points of neutrals there, and only 12 points of neutrals there. Let's see. Where's Tom Tyler? 8 and 5. Okay, 13, and then only 4. I was thinking maybe there's a Targaryen list, which is like
No, because I mean, like, even if they take Stormcrows now, like,
they just clicked the wrong one. Like that's a 6-point neutral unit. Actually, like this second list
that's quite a lot of
Steve
neutrals.
is
Yeah.
actually like assuming we count Stormcrows as
16,
actually
I think.
more than
Okay,
that,
well, they go over their neutral allowance then.
Yeah, I know, but like you know what I mean. They're neutral.
Massively.
They're just in targs.
Yeah.
But
that is a completely neutral army with a dragon.
that is literally and Daenerys on Burn.
Well,
as
I mean,
too,
you've got to
access
have
it.
Daenerys to enable a dragon.
In fact, yes, Daenerys, a dragon, and
28
Grey
points
Worm.
of neutral.
That's actually insane. I guess you'd argue that the Stormcrow Dario Naharis is actually different because he brings 4 cards, not the 3. So if he was running neutral Dario Commander, then I would just say that's basically a neutral. So. Interesting.
Oh well.
Yeah.
All to play for. Go out there, play games, submit games. You know, use the site.
In case it wasn't obvious, I will say something about the prizes. Bob or Bloodraven will win the event and be the best in faction. So yes, technically they'll win 2 prizes. I am aware. But with the focus of the main prize being on something else entirely, that will effectively they earn double prize, which, yes, is fine. Which would be the equivalent of winning the best in faction, which is effectively double prize anyway. Oh, sorry, best overall gain. So the 2 are very similar. Right.
Mickey's
I
just
know
letting
what I meant.
everybody know that he has no fucking clue what's going on with these prizes.
I do. I know exactly what's going on in my head. But the equivalent being that if you win the event, you obviously get the best in faction for that faction as well. Originally, I was going to do it so the best in faction couldn't be the winner of the event. But then I thought, that's not really true then, is it?
Yeah.
So, yeah, effectively the prize will just be double what anyone else would get for just normal best in faction. And then obviously, big surprise for, or big prize for the overall gainer of ELO. So there's a week left to play. The event, I'm going to put a post up about it on the NRG Discord so everyone knows, but the event officially ends 1 7-day week from basically right now. I will try and end the event at 7 p.m. GMT +1 in the UK. So we close the event literally seconds before Tourney Ground starts next week. There may be delays in games. I know that people have got delays in games. If that is the case, it's not the end of the world. Try not to, though. I will put that point out there. Try not to. But there is scope. I don't mind if we have to run it extra days to people get their last game in. Whatever. Doesn't bother me. But every game matters for your ELO game, guys. Every game matters. So get out there, play loads of games this week. Challenge Carlo. He's got a really inflated ELO at the moment. So challenge him for some games online. He'll probably say no, but challenge him anyway. What's the worst that can happen? You say yes?
I don't play TTS anymore. Locabri's really tense now because obviously he was trying to fly under the radar, make sure nobody knew that he was like sneaking his ELO up. But yeah, be really interesting to see who comes at it hard. Obviously, oh yeah, I'm off.
Brilliant.
Obviously, I recommend and think that players should be going out there and challenging other top players.
Yeah.
I will not deny that one of the easiest ways to get ELO is to go and find a beginner, convince them to sign up to the site, and then beat them. But if that's what you want to do, then interestingly,
he thinks that's what I
ultimately, in some ways, what the site generically needs, in that it needs people to continuously join the site. It doesn't want beginners to join and get hammered on by experienced players. That's what creates this idea that it's win at all cost players who are out to just get rating off people. Really, you should be looking at people in and around your own rating and trying to play games with them. If you can find them, do it. Take them on.
100%. So, I'll post this up. I'll update it so it's a bit more up to date and post this in the NRG so people can have a little look at this screenshot so they know where things are at the moment. But yeah, no pressure to Lockerbie. I know that his suspense is unbearable. He's asking me to stop it now, so 100% I won't. You've never been to Tourney Ground before, clearly, Lockerbie. So yeah, cool. That's it. Clash of Kings for NRG2. The CMON 20th anniversary this coming weekend. Some events coming up this weekend.
Loads of events next weekend.
Loads of events. Let's
can't even go through them.
Let's go very quickly through them. Right?
Okay.
Have
quite
you
a few in the US.
Yeah, quite a few in the US. I haven't got them up, so I am just going to be reading names out, taking names, reading things, not really going much about them. Not going to go into dive into too much detail with them. So, we have got another Polish event running in Poland next weekend. Polars are doing great. Keep it up, Poles. Fabricators Forge is also this weekend, again on Saturday. Fabricators Forge doing a 1.7 2021 Highlander tournament. Great. Fabricators Forge doing great work as well. We've also got NorCal returns. We've got Carl Kirsten's North Californian event starting up. That's a league structure-y thing.
I'm a bit confused because it's kind of scheduled as a league, but actually on the thing it says that it's a tournament and that it's got like 3 rounds in a day. So I don't know if it's a tournament or a league.
I can't remember which way. I'm sure Carl Kirsten, West Coast Bannerman, I'm sure he'll explain if he needs to, but he is doing some stuff there. We also had a new tournament pop up, which is actually accessible to everybody, but it's another one run by those crazy Australians, and it's a random faction, random commander. I believe Death has started this one up in classic Death style, where he's like, we need to generate more data for unused commanders, so I'm just going to generate commanders for you.
Yeah.
Absolute.
He even has removed the most played commanders from the set commanders that will be played.
So just like us, really high tech Excel spreadsheet usage here. And you can see the ones in red that he has removed. You won't get those randomly assigned to you, but everything else is in the pool to get randomly assigned. So yeah, really interesting.
And also absolutely expert use of the custom banner feature that the site now has, which is that he just uploaded his own banner, which is just a spreadsheet. I mean, I love seeing some of the amazing artwork that some of these tournament organizers put together to advertise their stores, stuff like that, advertise their event in general. But this one is definitely a very unique take on what that feature can do for you.
I actually think it's really clever. Really, really, really clever. So yeah, I'm pretty sure it's
Thank you. I was quite impressed with my own ability to let somebody upload a picture.
You coding something? Oh, it's Dark Angel, not Death. I apologize. Dark Angel did it. Hey, same difference. All Australians are the same Doxies. No, but obviously the guys, Dark Angel, Death, Doxies, any of the Australians they're all great. Big supporters of stats as well, and great guys. If you've never played against them, try and get a game against the Aussies.
Is the only one that I would know out of all of them.
You've literally talked to Death.
The rest are just the Australians.
Literally talked to Death and Dark Angel live on Tourney Ground before.
Yeah, but I don't know which one's which.
So Death is Chris. I think Death is Chris Hallett. That's the way I remember it. If I remember rightly, I'm probably wrong. Anyway, lovely guys. Australians are all great. Join them. I think they're looking for Australian time zone games, if possible.
Yep.
But I'm sure if you get in contact with them and say, look, I'm not Australia, can I play? I'm sure they'll say yes. Right. They're pretty open for events like this. So then we've got the Battle at the Citadel Library, which is another one in PA, which I have no idea where is. PA, Pennsylvania?
I think it's Pennsylvania.
Might be Pennsylvania.
That feels like it should be PV or who knows? Who knows?
One of the Americans will correct us. No, Pittsburgh.
I think it's Pittsburgh. Oh no, the one above's Pittsburgh.
In PA. We have no idea. It's America. But yeah, so Battle of the Citadel Library, which is on the Sunday, and the Tourney at Ashford Meadow, which is another Pittsburgh event happening on Sunday as well. So loads of Sunday events happening in and around the PA region.
Yeah.
Wherever
hopefully they all get good attendance. I don't know how big of a catchment area that is and what kind of players they would expect to get. If 3 events like that ran in the UK on the same day, then you'd be splitting your player base very much between them. But
it is
I know that I'm 99% sure that Bored to Death previously went to the Fabricators Ford event, and he will be going to the one of the 2 in Pittsburgh. They seem pretty close to each other. So
I don't think they're on the same day. I think these there's one on a Saturday, one on a Sunday, so you could literally go to both. How cool is that?
Then that would be very similar to when Birmingham and Derby put tournaments back to back, and actually it was ideal for people traveling because they effectively got to go to a 2-day tournament if they wanted.
Yeah.
And if they didn't, they could just go to one or either of the events.
Where is it?
Everybody letting us know that it is Pennsylvania. Just just us who have no clue what we're talking about.
Yeah,
as per usual.
The Saturday event is in Coraopolis. Not said that terribly. On the Saturday, and then on the Sunday it will be one of the other 2, which I'm guessing is the Library Road one. So you can actually play an event on Saturday and Sunday within what looks like to be about a 20-minute drive, half an hour drive. It is America, so
go sign up.
Are off. Yeah.
Go sign up if you can. Go to them both if you can. Play games if you can.
Yeah. We've then got the CIS Cup in Helsinki. The guys over in Finland doing some stuff over there. Absolutely legendary guys over in Finland. Shout out to Tumo and things like that. He does a lot of posts and runs his own blog and things up there in the Finnish area, so that's great. The Italian national tournament is happening, not this weekend, the next weekend. We'll obviously cover it. We'll be a bit more hyped for that. The Italian event is running, and they've been given prize support, and it's really interesting and really fun. Only 20 players, but it's still looking like it could be an interesting event to have a look at. It's worth noting that some of the Italian players are now some of the top-rated players on stats through sheer weight of games, and they're not just playing other Italians. They're playing outside. They're playing people on TTS. So yeah, region 2 is really up and coming there. Still got the event in Leipzig. This is happening next weekend or the weekend after, and the three tournament. I can't even pronounce it.
He's butchering some French as always.
It's the Quebec kind of Quebec event that was running.
Just another week on Tourney ground. Mickey trying to do French.
Yeah. And then it's the grand tournament and everything else we've already covered. Rimble Rumble was added. I can't remember if Rimble Rumble was on here last. Might have been. But Rimble Rumble, if you're in the UK, check out Rimble Rumble in Stockport. Run by Brian McGonigal, partially, and I've never been, Carlo's never been, but we do believe from when people in the UK have gone, said it's a really fun event, and it gets good reviews. So, the grand tournament then, it's getting close. You can join the waiting list now, if I just make it a bit more reasonable, for the grand tournament, and I'm going to be painting more units. So, yeah.
I actually just realized today that I really need to actually up the speed of my own painting for what I want to play into the ELO event on Friday. Sign up to the ELO event. That's got loads of spaces left. Join the waiting list. If you want to come to the main event, still there's some places from people trying to move on their ticket. If you want to come in a pair, 3 people, like that can and will happen. So don't think that there's just a ticket floating around. You could still get your group to come. But yeah, I need to paint some units actually, particularly because the units that I've been painting very recently are all not legal. That's the thing that dawned on me today, which is those hedge knights can't be played, which is unfortunate. But that's where we're at.
I counted my units that I need to paint, and assuming that I paint all 4 of my raiders, assuming that I bring them on as reinforcements or whatever if I've got lists, I realise now that I might need 5 or 6 raider units, depending on what lists I want to run, so I'm going to have to buy 2 more. Hey, great me. So, yeah, I've still got to be on the safe side. 7 units to paint, 8 units to base.
7 units to not disappoint Duncan Rhodes specifically. Yep. Yeah, come on, get going.
So that's 2 a week.
2 units a week, Mickey.
Yes. Yeah. That's 2 a week. So yesterday was doing base shading and coating for the 2 Follows the Bone units and or DLCs. Oh Jesus, I've just remembered. Christ, I've not just got to freaking base 7/8 units. I've also got to base an extra tray, so I can replace the tray if I'm using Bone Lord's Chosen rather than Follows a Bone. Nightmare.
I would say at my very best, when I'm really going for it, I paint a unit every 2 weeks.
Slow, mate. I'm buggered. Right, anyway, we'll leave it there with me with a mountain of painting. Carlo with a load of, not stuff he doesn't have to paint. And we'll leave it there. And we'll leave it with something that I can only emulate, which is a bunch of pictures from our friend Deoxys, who sent me some lovely pictures painted for him.
Oh, there we go.
So
look at that. The complete hobbyist. Great player, plays tons of factions, and he paints.
Really is. I've got these guys painted. Anders is not.
No pointed comment there, Mickey, at all. Deoxys doesn't even play Free Folk, and he's got more painted Free Folk than Mickey.
I don't paint. I'm not good at it. I don't enjoy it that much. I don't mind the model making. Ironically, I'll make models all day. I'm sat here with mountains of really expensive resin models, and I make them and go cool, and then I don't paint them. A unit or a tray. If he's open, if Lockerbie are talking to me, 8 units, as in 8 trays. Those Thens, everyone paints their Thens. Everyone paints Thens. Come on. I've got a unit painted Thens. Jesus.
They're nice Thens. That's a nice black scheme, actually.
I actually like this because this is not too dissimilar to my Raiders. I like those Raiders.
Yeah, I actually really like this darker tone.
Taking the dark tone with it. I quite like it. And then this one here, a bit more holistic approach of the lot. He's not got that much painted. You know.
It's enough. You can feel 40 points. Oh
Enough.
no! We've gone so long that my light has gone out.
Hilarious. We'll finish on a giant there. So mostly contrasts. Yeah, Deoxys, free focus.
Well, they look really good, mate.
Contrasts.
They look not like contrasts, which generally I think is a positive thing. But you know, not that there's an issue with contrast paints, but I prefer the deeper tones that you get from a multicolored kind of base layer approach, and they look really deep.
I will say from personal experience, you get a quick finish into do things. In my experience,
Yeah, Lee, quickly, mate, get your savage rating into the comments for true cool money or not. Waiting for the 2s and the 3s out of 10.
1. I do find that you're better off with like the rank and file like Raiders and stuff. Just certainly free folk. Just slap a load of contrast on them, like make some variants in them, and then go through and just do a couple of highlights here and there on like belts and things if you want that. Because you can, I mean, you've seen my Raiders, Carlo. They're not trash, and ultimately that was all contrast with some highlights added on, and you can get an like perfectly fine result. That I'd argue is it's not even tabletop ready. It's like decent. And it's not actually
interesting to Deoxy's like point. So question is that a matte varnish? That's a matte varnish over the contrast to take away the shine, I assume.
Yeah.
Which then makes it not look like contrast anymore. Interesting that you say that. My issue with contrast might actually be the
sheen.
Might be the shiny finish. Might be the I forget what it's called.
It's the glaze.
The gloss finish. The gloss finish that you get from it being too shiny. Yeah. Maybe my world has just been revolutionized simply by that comment.
If you think about my giants, Carlo, and I know it's not a huge amount, but if you think about the giants that I've got, they were painted with contrast and then matte varnished. So when we're next physically playing, which should be like 4 weeks from now, they're very similar.
The GT.
Oh Jesus, it might be the GT. Is it the GT? Oh well, we'll sort that one out. Anyway, guys, we'll leave it there. It's been 2.5 hours, a long one today. And I hope you have a great weekend, depending on where you're playing, what you're playing, and I hope you will enjoy your week. And for us, we're going to have a long weekend. So we'll see you next Monday, and have a good one.
Bye-bye.
Ready, aim, release! Anyone see my mammoth?